Chapter 354. Well, now Zhang Tan finally knew the origin of Lu Ba's name. After Lu Ba finished writing, he looked at Zhang Tan and asked, "You really can't speak?" In Lu Ba's opinion, monsters in the legends could all speak. Although he had never encountered such a thing before, he had encountered some other phenomena that were difficult to explain with science. Since he had accepted this reality, his thoughts ran in the direction of a cat demon. However, this cat had indeed never spoken, not usually, not even on the phone. Otherwise, it would not have used the more complicated Morse code to communicate and convey information. Sure enough, after Lu Ba finished asking, he received a look from Zhang Tan that said, "You're talking nonsense." Not being able to speak was one of Zhang Tan's sore spots. Lu Ba had obviously stabbed Zhang Tan in the back. It had been more than 5 years since he turned into a cat. The experience of not being able to speak human language and not being able to meow for more than 5 years really made Zhang Tan uncomfortable. "It's okay if you can't speak." After a pause, Lu Ba said again, "Are you really not a monster?" When Lu Ba first discovered the truth, he was the most shocked. Now, the most shocking moment had passed. After some time, the feeling was not as strong as at the beginning. Last night, he had been thinking about how to talk to this cat properly the whole night. He was confident in talking to humans, but he had no experience in talking to a cat. During this period, Lu Ba had recalled the situation from the first time he saw this cat until now. He remembered that he had even sprayed this cat with a water gun. Now that he thought about it at that time, he was really looking for trouble. Zhang Tan decided to ignore Lu Ba's nonsense. Seeing Zhang Tan's impatient look, Lu Ba changed the topic to something that Zhang Tan was interested in. He talked about when he found Zhang Tan's phone, changed Zhang Tan's phone ringtone, and monitored the phone all the time. Strictly speaking, this kind of behavior was illegal. However, since Lu Ba could say it so openly, he must have removed the traces long ago. Without evidence, he could not sue this guy even if he wanted to. Of course, people like Lu Ba were the kind of people who took advantage of the loopholes in the law. Private detectives were not allowed in China, so they changed to legal identities. Consulting agencies, referral agencies, and the like, there were a lot of such things. Because of her occupational disease, once Lu Ba was certain, she would try her best to investigate. Before the earthquake, Lu Ba did not make up her mind to investigate further. After all, no one wanted their privacy to be discovered. At that time, Lu Ba did not want to offend the other party. However, after the earthquake, Liu Ba went all out. If he couldn't find the answer, he couldn't sleep well. Once he closed his eyes, he would think about the things that happened during the earthquake, as well as the phone calls and text messages. No one who had experienced that disaster could ever be the same as before. Therefore, he made his move. Of course, Liu Ba didn't tell anyone else what she said, so Zhang Tan believed her. At the same time, it could also be said that they were tight-lipped due to professional reasons. If it weren't for their tight-lipped nature, there wouldn't be so many upper-class people asking them to do things for them. This made Zhang Tan feel a little better. The initial unstable emotions quickly passed. After starting, it was much easier. Unlike Ran Qi, Lu Ba had a strong ability to accept things. He didn't care whether the cat in front of him was a god or a demon. As long as it didn't harm his interests, it was fine. It was also good to form a good relationship with it. Unlike Ran Qi, Lu Ba didn't have many taboos about this kind of thing. Now, when Ran Qi saw Zhang Tan, he still had the principle of avoiding it. After Lu Ba talked for a long time, Zhang Tan still squatted there in the same way. He didn't say anything and didn't respond to Lu Ba's words until Lu Ba talked about the safety of mobile phones. After saying so much, Lu Ba had been observing Zhang Tan. Seeing that Zhang Tan seemed to be a little interested in this topic, she planned to talk about it in detail. Of course, she wouldn't really reveal the technical aspects. Mobile phones are actually not as safe as people think. If they really want to locate and monitor your mobile phone, you can't stop them even if you turn off your phone. As for the common means, it's nothing more than a virus. Before 2004, the SMS virus stage could monitor a mobile phone with a material in it. After that, it was the deceptive virus stage, and the future loophole virus stage. These were the technologies that were commonly mastered in their industry. There were other more advanced technologies that depended more on one's own ability. No one would reveal the technologies that they had mastered, and the skills that they used to make money were all kept to themselves. Especially now that smartphones are on the rise, It's very easy to get hold of them. In fact, a lot of spying technologies have been developed long ago. It's just that they will only be known to the public a few years later. Some of them will even be kept secret forever. Signal interception, interface security, text messages, email cracking, jailbreaking, and so on could all be done from this. Now that the era of smartphones was coming, people like Lu Ba were excited because it would be easier for them to take on jobs, monitor mobile phones, and locate targets. Your mobile phone isn't a smartphone, but it's not good in terms of security. It's not difficult for me to monitor it. However, we can't monitor your cat dad's mobile phone. Even if we can, it's very risky, Lu Ba said. Zhang Tan glanced at Lu Ba. In order to investigate him, Lu Ba even investigated the Jiao Pa? Thinking about it, the mobile phone that the Jiao Pa was using now seemed to be issued by the institute or the school. At that time, Zhang Tan only thought that it was a bonus for the year-end bonus. Now that he heard Lu Ba's words, it seemed that the mobile phone was something that protected the privacy of scientific researchers. Moreover, we usually don't do anything to the people here. Lu Ba pointed to the surroundings, which meant the area around Tsinghua University. Even if we accept a job, we will think twice. First, there are many experts in the school, and there are several well-equipped laboratories. There are capable people there, and it's not good to be caught by them. Fortunately, they didn't notice you before. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to hide. Second, there are many people in this school that I don't want to provoke and can't afford to. When Lu Ba tracked to Tsinghua University, she hesitated. After thinking about it, she decided to continue the search. Do you know that there are at least 3 people in your building that I don't want to provoke? I don't even want to investigate them. Zhang Tan was shocked. At least 3 people? Seeing Zhang Tan looking at her, Lu Ba continued. There are 2 people on the 3rd floor and 1 on the 1st floor. These are only the people that I have seen. As for those that I haven't seen, I don't know. 2 people on the 3rd floor? Old Man Lon and his wife? No. There was another person on the 3rd floor. Although Er Mao's family had a house outside, they would come here to stay for a few days from time to time. It was said that when his daughter Er Yuan was older next year, they would come here to stay. Could the other person be Er Mao? As for the one on the 1st floor, it should be De Pang's old lady. In our line of work, most of the time, we don't need to investigate too much. We can get preliminary information from many seemingly trivial things at a glance. Otherwise, if you provoke someone that you shouldn't provoke, you won't even know how you died. Without brains and eyesight, you won't be able to work in this line of work for long, Lu Ba said. Lu Ba always thought that she was the kind of person who had good eyesight, but unfortunately, she hit a wall when it came to this cat. However, if it was someone else, they might not be as good as Lu Ba. Who would suspect an ordinary cat? The phone used by the old lady on the 1st floor is not something that ordinary people can use. I can tell at a glance that this person is not someone to be trifled with. Even if I receive a related order, I will consider it carefully. Lu Ba didn't want to go against the state machine. Zhang Tan recalled the old lady's phone. He remembered that it didn't seem to have a brand. He always thought that De Pang's old lady's phone was just an ordinary old man's phone. He didn't expect that the old lady's phone was even better than the Jiao Pa. However, when he thought about the old lady's son's identity, it was understandable. Maybe her son was promoted again. Seeing that Zhang Tan was looking at her suspiciously, Lu Ba waved her hand and said, "We will not divulge the information of our clients, nor will we disturb unrelated people. This is an exception. Other than this incident, I really haven't investigated anyone else. We also have professional ethics." Ethics. Is this thing worth money? Zhang Tan thought to himself. But soon he thought, damn it, this world is too dangerous. I can't get a high-end mobile phone. Instead of being discovered by more people, I'd better not use a mobile phone. When he thought of Liu Ba's words that there were many capable people in the school, he felt scared. When Zhang Tan lowered his head and considered whether to throw the phone into the lake to destroy the evidence, Lu Ba poked Zhang Tan with a branch. "Hey, are you interested in joining us?" Lu Ba looked at Zhang Tan expectantly. Old people, children, and women were the kind of people that could easily make people let down their guard. Animals were even more so. Seeing that Zhang Tan was indifferent, Lu Ba continued, "This is a fast way to make money. If we cooperate, how about we split the profits 50-50? Don't worry, we won't take on dangerous jobs." Do this business? Detective? This kind of thing seemed to have been done a long time ago. He was tired of walking around the school, and it was inconvenient to walk further away. Zhang Tan didn't know if it was because he had become a cat, but he had inherited the cat's disease of pooping without curiosity and itching paws when he didn't move for a while. He always wanted to find some entertainment. However, Zhang Tan was still hesitant to cooperate with Lu Ba. Lu Ba said that it would help Zhang Tan keep the secret, and Zhang Tan believed it. However, Zhang Tan didn't want to cooperate with him for the time being. Firstly, he wasn't very familiar with Lu Ba. Secondly, he just came back and didn't want to run around until the Chinese New Year. Moreover, Zhang Tan got a lot of money from this movie, so he didn't lack money for the time being. During the Chinese New Year, he could work overtime at Xiaoguo's place and get some cash so that he could give red packets during the Chinese New Year. Zhang Tan didn't want to care about other things. Lu Ba had something to do later, and Zhang Tan didn't want to listen to Lu Ba's nagging, so they left separately. Lu Ba asked Zhang Tan to think about it. If he made a decision, he could call it directly. Zhang Tan thought about it all night. He wasn't thinking about the cooperation, but whether to throw the phone into the lake. As for the exposure, it would be fine as long as Lu Ba kept it a secret. In fact, as the old woman in the lakeside villa area said, there were more than one people around Zhang Tan who pretended to be ignorant. Even if they knew that Zhang Tan was different, they didn't say anything. Instead, they provided a lot of help openly and secretly. If things were to take a turn for the worse, he would go and look for help. The next day, Zhang Tan wandered to the old tiled house area where the phone was hidden. As soon as Zhang Tan flipped into the house, he smelled the scent of someone who had been here. It was Lu Ba. On a table in the room, there was a flip phone that looked 70 to 80% new but didn't have any special features, and a new SIM card. Zhang Tan hadn't seen the brand of the phone before. The buttons were a little bigger than the one Zhang Tan used before, so it was quite easy to press. Next to the phone and the SIM card, there was a note. If you want to cooperate, call me. There was a smiley cat face drawn behind this sentence. Chapter 355. It was a winter afternoon and the sun was shining brightly. 4 cats were lying side by side on a wooden bench beside the withered lawn of the eastern courtyard. The 4 cats were all in the same position. They were lying on the wooden bench, basking in the sun with their paws tucked in and their eyes squinted. At first, Zhang Tan would not keep his paws tucked in like this because he looked like a cat. Zhang Tan felt a little uncomfortable. But when he saw the cats around him kicking their paws, he unconsciously followed suit. It was quite warm and not tiring to keep his paws tucked in like this. The weather was just right for him to keep his paws tucked in like this. Habit was a very scary thing. Once you got used to it, things would become natural. Now, Zhang Tan often learned from them by folding his front paws and tucking them in properly. From time to time, people walked by the courtyard. They were not surprised to see the 4 cats on the wooden bench. They just smiled. Anyone who had lived in the courtyard for a long time knew about the 4 cats. For the old people here, they were already very familiar with the scenery. Perhaps when this scenery disappeared one day, people would still remember it. Although the 4 cats were all in the same position and looked like they were dozing off, the ears of the 4 cats on the bench twitched at the same time when they heard a little noise. Zhang Tan did not know what the other 3 cats were thinking. He just felt that the sun was too bright and squinted his eyes to think about things. Zhang Tan had not turned on his mobile phone for a week. The mobile phone that Lu Ba gave him was locked in the drawer of the old wooden table in the tile-roofed house. He had not touched it since then. Moreover, he had decided not to touch these 2 mobile phones for a long time unless there was something special. Although he wanted to use his mobile phone to send messages to the Zhao family, it seemed that he should not do so now. The old tile-roofed house would not be demolished for a while. If it was going to be demolished, a notice would be posted in advance. Zhang Tan was not worried about this place being demolished. Even if he did not go there every day, as long as he went out for a walk, he would know that his mobile phone was still there. As for other things, Zhang Tan did not want to care about them. Cooperation? Let's talk about it when we want to work together. Zhang Tan had already deleted all the text messages and call records of the original old mobile phone. Although Zhang Tan knew that professionals could also get a lot of information from it, there was no other way. Fortunately, the probability of being discovered by professionals was very small. If it was discovered, he could only ask Liu Ba for help. As long as Liu Ba didn't say anything, who would know that the real owner of the mobile phone was actually a cat? The reason why Zhang Tan didn't reject Lu Ba's suggestion immediately and still kept the mobile phone was that he had a backup plan in case something really happened. He could use the mobile phone to ask for help. Zhang Tan believed in Lu Ba's capabilities. After a week, Lu Ba didn't appear again. It was unknown if she was busy with a new task. While he was thinking, Zhang Tan heard the owner of Sahara shouting again from the family building. Opening his eyes, Zhang Tan soon saw Sahara running out like a wild horse. The more the people behind him shouted, the faster he ran. Seeing that the dog had run out of the courtyard, Sahara's owner, Wan Ying, panted and stopped running. Seeing the 4 cats lying on the wooden chair, he slowly walked over and complained as he walked. "Damn it! Isn't it just a bath? It's like he's treating an enemy." Sahara didn't dislike bathing in the summer and sometimes liked to flush the pipes. However, in the winter it had a different attitude. When it heard the word bath, it would run away. When it was locked up at home, Wan Ying could still block it in a corner and drag it to the bathroom. However, today, he was unlucky and let it run away. Today, Wan Ying happened to have nothing to do in the afternoon. When he came home, he saw that Sahara hadn't bathed in a long time, so he planned to give it a bath. At that time, Sahara was happily chewing on the dog food in its bowl and didn't notice Wan Ying's actions of taking shower gel and bathing tools. Unfortunately, Wan Ying's grandfather came back at that time. An old professor who had a good relationship with Wan Ying's grandfather, academician Wan, came over. When he saw Wan Ying's gloves and tools, he said, "Wan Ying, are you going to give Sahara a bath?" Almost in the next moment, Sahara squeezed out like a gust of wind through the gap of the door that wasn't closed yet. It didn't even care about the unfinished dog food. There was also a teacher downstairs who had just come back from outside. He opened the door and let Sahara escape. Because he knew that Sahara hated bathing when it was cold, Wan Ying's movements were very quiet. He was afraid that he would make a sound in advance and let Sahara know. Many cats and dogs would react to certain sounds and words. In the courtyard, there was a Pekingese that hated bathing regardless of whether it was winter or summer. When it heard the sound of its special bathtub, it would immediately hide in its nest with its tail between its legs. No matter how its owner threatened or tempted it, it wouldn't go over. Every time, it would be carried out of its nest and put into the bathtub to be washed. Once Sahara ran away, it definitely wouldn't be able to catch up in a short period of time. Therefore, Wan Ying didn't plan to chase after it directly. That would tire him to death. When that stupid dog was hungry, it would naturally come back. Under normal circumstances, Sahara wouldn't run out of the school and would hide in the school grounds. There was no need to worry. Wan Ying looked at the 4 cats on the wooden chair and thought that Sahara wasn't as obedient as other cats. His gaze finally landed on Zhang Tan and said, "Black charcoal, when you go out to play, if you see Sahara, give it 2 slaps on my behalf. It's getting more and more disobedient. F***ck, it's too good at tormenting people." Wan Ying was just saying this. He did not expect Zhang Tan to understand. Many pet owners would talk to their pets like this. It was just a habit. He did not think that his pets would understand much. It was just like how many old people in the compound would tease Zhang Tan and the other cats when they saw them, just like how they would tease a child. After Wan Ying left, Zhang Tan lay down on the wooden chair for a while. When the sun wasn't very strong at 3 or 4 o'clock, it would be a bit cold to continue squatting. Huang and the sheriff also planned to go to the forest to look for something fun to do. Both of them had short fur, but Depang's fat body was more resistant to the cold. It could maintain the same posture until the sun set. No matter how the north wind blew, it was unwavering. This endurance was probably developed from squatting instant noodles. Just like that, Depang continued to nap on the wooden chair. Huang and the sheriff went to look for some fun, and Zhang Tan went out to the courtyard to take a walk. While taking a walk, Zhang Tan saw Sahara. That guy was sniffing around a row of parked bicycles. Then, it looked around and walked to the side of a bicycle. It raised one of its hind legs and started to pee at the bicycle. Zhang Tan. After Sahara finished peeing, it even scratched its hind legs twice. It seemed to be very happy and proud. Unfortunately, its pride didn't last long. 2 male students walked over. After seeing it, one of them immediately showed anger. F***ck. That dog came to pee again. It's staring at me, isn't it? Again? Zhang Tan was puzzled. Although Sahara had a bit of a bad taste and liked to play pranks, It usually wouldn't pee everywhere when it came out. Besides, it rarely ran out by itself. Most of the time it was led out by someone. How could it pee in front of Ruaning and the rest? Was it looking for a beating? No wonder Ruaning said that this guy was becoming more and more disobedient. When she said that, Ruaning looked like she was gnashing her teeth. The owner of the bicycle ran over. Sahara quickly ran away when it saw people. It was different from when it ran away immediately after doing something bad. This guy ran a few steps and turned around to roar at the two people. When it saw them chasing after it, it ran again. When it ran a little further, it roared at them again. Was this a feud? Otherwise, Sahara wouldn't attract hatred for no reason, right? Zhang Tan lay on a tree and looked at the two people who were cursing but couldn't catch up to Sahara. He then looked at Sahara, who was standing 100 meters away and looking at them without running. Zhang Tan wondered if he should go over and take Sahara away. Then, he heard the two people talking in a low voice. Hey, do you think it's because it saw us last time that it's been staring at us? One of them said. That can't be. Isn't it just a dog? How could it know about this? Besides, the bicycle we stole wasn't even its. Why would it care about other people's business? The other person took out a pack of tissues and was about to wipe it, but when he saw the wet wheels and even the pedals, he frowned in disgust. He put the tissues back into his bag and kicked the bicycle. I don't want this bicycle anymore. I'll just sell it when the time comes. It's not worth much anyway. Zhang Tan listened to their conversation. When someone walked past them, they didn't say anything. When someone walked past them, they continued talking. Although their voices were very low, Zhang Tan could still hear them with his hearing. So they were stealing a bicycle. Sahara probably saw them stealing a bicycle previously. He was wondering why Sahara's attitude was so bad. However, how did these two steal a bicycle and contact Sahara? Did they steal it to Sahara's house? Zhang Tan remembered that Sahara's owner, Ruaning, had a four-wheeled sedan. No one in Ruaning's family seemed to ride bicycles. Puzzled, Zhang Tan looked at Sahara. When he looked over, Zhang Tan realized that Sahara was staring at someone again. It was a female student who looked quite gentle. She was riding a bicycle, but Sahara ran over and pushed her and her bicycle, causing the girl to scream in fright. The two people who were discussing when to sell the bicycle heard the commotion. After cursing, they ran over. On the other side, there were also enthusiastic students who began to help comfort the female student who had fallen. They also had the intention of surrounding Sahara. Zhang Tan saw that something was wrong and quickly ran over. Sahara was also smart. When it saw that there were more people, it turned around and ran. This time, it didn't even stop. The surrounding students were clamoring to find the dog's owner and hold him accountable. Many people agreed and even said that they would post this matter on the school forum, warning everyone to be careful of this dog in the future. Who knows? This dog might have contracted rabies or something. There were also people who seemed to recognize Sahara. After all, Sahara had been in school for more than 5 years. It was about the same time as Zhang Tan had been here. Some students who often walked here could also recognize it. They knew that it was raised by a teacher in school, but they couldn't tell whose family it was. However, there were also people who might know. When Zhang Tan left, those people were still discussing it. Zhang Tan chased after Sahara until he reached the corner of the courtyard. Sahara hid behind a few trees. When Zhang Tan chased over, that guy was still peeking his head out. When he saw that it was only Zhang Tan coming over, his courage immediately returned. He even wagged his tail happily. It was unknown whether he was happy to see Zhang Tan or proud of what he had just done. Zhang Tan wanted to slap that dog's face a few times when he saw it. What was the use of hiding there? This guy didn't even know that he had caused trouble for his owner. Chapter 356. Sahara held grudges. Usually, Sahara seemed to be easy to get along with and played with many children in the courtyard. However, once it remembered someone, it would probably remember that person for a long time. This was the experience that Zhang Tan had in the 5 years that he had known Sahara. Based on the current situation, those people had somehow provoked Sahara. Many animals had a deep impression of people, not only from their appearance, but also from their voice and smell. No matter what, Sahara remembered those 3 people. Zhang Tan was not Sahara, and she did not understand dog language. She could only roughly decipher what they were trying to express based on her understanding of Sahara and the other dogs in the compound over the past few years. However, she did not know the cause of the matter. If she wanted to understand, she had to find out by herself. Thinking that there was nothing to do recently, and Xiaogua's New Year's Day task had been completed, Zhang Tan had time to walk around the school. After digging in the Sahara for a while, it began to feel bored. In winter, there were no insects like grasshoppers to relieve its boredom, so it could only dig in the soil. Now that it was hungry, it planned to go home. It did not realize that it had caused trouble at all. It also did not know that it might bring trouble to its master and some people related to its master. When it was hungry, it had to eat. When it wanted to eat, it had to go home. When it went home, it began to bark to urge it to eat. This was the survival principle of every domestic pet in the city. After watching Sahara walk back to the courtyard, Zhang Tan did not follow it back. Instead, he returned to the place where Sahara had pushed the car. Now that there was no one around, the people walking around had no idea that a dog had just pushed a person over there. Zhang Tan looked around and did not see the two men and the woman. Seeing that it was almost time, he went back. If he went back late, he would be scolded. The next day, Zhang Tan turned on the computer when no one was at home and looked at the school forum of Tsinghua University. One only needed to look at the school forum to know whether the matter had blown up or not. Nowadays, the internet was becoming more and more advanced. Students would discuss anything on the forum. They would discuss buying a car, buying headphones, and even discussing what kind of medicine smelly feet should use. Even though it was the final exam period, the forum was still bustling with activity. It was even more lively than usual. There were people selling cheating devices, part-time scalpers selling train tickets, and groups trying to get people to go home together. Zhang Tan went online and browsed the school forum when he didn't know what to do. Turning to the relevant discussion area, Zhang Tan saw a hot post as soon as he opened it. After clicking on it, a photo of Sahara, the funny dog, was placed there. It was taken by a student when Sahara was pushing someone yesterday. The photo was not good, but people who were familiar with it could easily recognize Sahara. After all, in the school, there was only one dog with 3 bloodlines that looked like this. Other huskies and Labradors were purer. The student who posted the post was one of the passers-by yesterday. He usually liked to hang out on the school forum. He said that when he and his classmates were preparing to go shopping yesterday, they saw a dog push a girl riding a bicycle. The person who took the photo was his classmate. His words revealed his dissatisfaction with the school's incident. He was worried that the dog was sick and would hurt other students in the school. It was really a dangerous factor. Many people replied to the post. Many of them recognized Sahara. They even dug out information about Sahara's owner, Wan Ying, and Wan Ying's grandfather, academician Wan. Naturally, there were some people who mocked and ridiculed. Should we go to the security office to report this matter? What's there to report? Can't you see that his grandfather is an academician? Who is academician Wan? Is he very powerful? Brother upstairs, haven't you heard the school broadcast? You don't know about the famous academician Wan, but this person appears quite frequently. He has given lectures and made a lot of achievements. He's a celebrity. Even my supervisor has to act like a child in front of him. There's a saying called a dog relying on its master's power. Next time, give a bad review on the internet. Maybe there's a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding my ass. I heard that the dog is usually quite crazy. Sigh, Ruaning is still teaching us. He's quite a good person. But I don't know about academician Ruan. I've only heard of his name, but I've never seen him. Like dog like master. My impression of academician Ruan has dropped to negative values. A bunch of losers. If you have the guts, say it in front of him. If you have the time, why don't you go find a teacher to ask questions? Are you planning to go to class with your juniors next year if you fail? I don't know which bastard cancelled the makeup exam policy. F***CK. The big hot at the end of the post showed that many people were following it. From the first page to the last page, Zhang Tan realized that Sahara had probably gotten into trouble this time. Many of the students did not even know the cause of the incident and were just making a ruckus. It was probably because it was during the final exams, so some people who were under pressure decided to find entertainment here. Although it was just a dog, sometimes, a small fuse was all that was needed to explode. Unfortunately, dogs could not speak. Even if Sahara was really wronged, it could not say anything. Ruan Ying could only apologize to it. Now, academician Ruan was involved. The upper class had their own game. Although Professor Ruan was an academician, there was more than one academician in the school. There were also people who dared to go against academician Ruan. Many of the people in the post were from other factions. If they could not do research, they would use strategy. This was a common phenomenon that made people feel helpless. After turning off the computer, Zhang Tan went to Sahara's building. Downstairs, he could still hear Sahara whining from its nose. It sounded like it had been wronged. Unfortunately, there was nothing he could do. Letting it out would only make things more troublesome. At noon, Zhang Tan heard people in the courtyard talking about Sahara being locked up by Ruan Ying. It was estimated that it would not be released for a long time. Ruan Ying was looking for someone to apologize. In the afternoon, Zhang Tan went to the place where Sahara peed on the bicycle yesterday. There was no smell of urine on the bicycle. It was probably sold by the two people. After waiting for a long time, he did not see the two people. For the next few days, Zhang Tan wandered around the school, looking for the three people. Finally, one day, Zhang Tan saw them. However, they were not in the school, but near the school gate. That day, Zhang Tan went to Jiao Wei's small restaurant for lunch. On his way back, he took a look at the Wu Taro sesame cake shop. There were still many people. Although it was past lunchtime and the line was not very long, there were still 7 or 8 people in the line. A female student carrying a backpack rode her bike to the biscuit shop and stopped by a tree. She probably felt that it was too troublesome to lock her bike. Buying biscuits wouldn't take too much time, so she didn't lock her bike. She parked her bike there and walked towards the biscuit shop. When it was her turn to line up at the biscuit shop, Zhang Tan saw a person walk to the spot where the female student had parked her bike. He calmly pushed the bike away and rode away. Zhang Tan was stunned. However, when others saw this scene, they would not have any other thoughts. It was too natural. However, when the female student came back with the sesame cake and did not see her bicycle and shouted, "Where's my bicycle?" Zhang Tan knew that there was something wrong with her. The person who rode away was the female student who had pushed the bicycle with Sahara that day. Nearby, Zhang Tan also saw another face. It was the owner of the bicycle that Sahara had peed on that day. Zhang Tan did not have time to think too much. Zhang Tan could no longer see the female student riding the bicycle. The pedestrians and cars blocked his view. However, Zhang Tan could still follow the other person. The man was riding an old bicycle that looked a little shabby. He was not fast, so Zhang Tan could follow him easily. The man did not ride into the school. Instead, he rode in the direction away from the school. Zhang Tan hesitated for a moment. After all, he did not know where the two people were going. However, Zhang Tan did not think too much about it and continued to follow. Riding a bicycle would not take them far. Besides, if it was really too far, Zhang Tan would not continue to chase. Fortunately, the man did not ride far. After following for about 2 or 3 minutes, they arrived at a bicycle shop. This shop repaired bicycles and sold new and used bicycles. The shop was estimated to be about 50 square meters. It was filled with bicycles. The repair shop had a simple shed built outside. 2 students were there to pump air, and another student was pushing a bicycle to repair the chain. Inside the shop, a man in his 40s was sitting on a velvet chair and playing with his phone. When he saw the person who came, he did not say anything. He just tilted his head slightly. One look, one small movement. They both understood each other. Zhang Tan watched the man push the bicycle into the alley next to the shop. Zhang Tan followed him. Without a cat tag, no one would suspect that it was a cat. People who saw it would just think that it was someone's pet. Zhang Tan did not come out when the trouble in the Sahara Desert happened that day, so they did not see him. Therefore, when the person walking in front turned around and saw Zhang Tan, he did not think much of it. There was a small courtyard behind the shop with a 2-meter-high wall. The man opened the backyard door and pushed the bicycle in. Zhang Tan walked to the corner, jumped on the wall, and looked inside. There were 4 people standing in the courtyard. 3 men and 1 woman. They were about the same age and were talking and laughing. Zhang Tan had seen 3 of them on the day of the trouble in the Sahara Desert. The other person was unfamiliar and looked like a student. He did not dye his hair yellow and did not wear non-mainstream clothes. At first glance, No one would think bad of him. There were 2 bicycles parked in the courtyard. One of them was the one that the female student rode. The person that Zhang Tan had not seen before was wearing a blue uniform. There were tools next to him. He planned to redo the bicycle, grind off the original paint, and spray new paint. Looking at the posture of these people, he knew that they had been doing this for more than a month or 2. They were familiar with it. Judging by the calm look of the woman who had ridden someone else's bicycle, he knew that she had done this kind of thing often. She looked like a quiet girl. When the Sahara Desert pushed her down with the bicycle that day, she had attracted a lot of sympathy. But who knew that she would do such a thing? None of these people looked like they had done bad things, but that was the truth. These people had stolen a bicycle and probably provoked the Sahara Desert. The Sahara Desert was watching them, but the method was wrong. It could not speak, could not explain, and no one helped it. It was useless to just know that these people had stolen a bicycle. The other party had more people and more mouths, so they could defend themselves. In contrast, the Sahara Desert could be beaten to a pulp in an instant. It could only be locked at home and whimper. Zhang Tan actually wanted to pull out all the valves in the shop to piss them off, but now was not the right time. It would be easy to alert the enemy. After squatting on the wall and watching for a while, Zhang Tan quietly left. If he wanted to clear the Sahara Desert's name, he could only use evidence. As Zhang Tan ran to school, he thought, I'm not the one who caused trouble this time. I'm just helping the Sahara Desert. At the same time, Zhang Tan had to admit that he was a little excited every time he did something like this. Chapter 357. Now that he had decided to help Sahara clear its name, Zhang Tan immediately started to act. He had to hurry up. In another week, a large number of students would start to go home. At that time, even if the truth was revealed, the effect would be much worse. If this matter could not be settled, Sahara would not be able to have fun in school in the future and would be ridiculed by others. Although it could not understand the complicated human language, many animals, especially animals that had lived in human society for a long time, were very sensitive to the emotions of people. They could distinguish between good and bad feelings. Zhang Tan had seen many examples of this, and Sahara was also one of them. It was not easy to be an animal. The thieves seemed to be planning to make a lot of money before the winter vacation because some of the more expensive bicycles would be moved to the student dormitory before the students left school. Usually, many people found it troublesome to move them up and down, especially those who lived on higher floors. However, when the vacation came, they would move them to the dormitory or the dormitory of the students who lived on lower floors to prevent them from being stolen and to prevent them from being exposed to the wind and rain outside. It was safer to put them in the shed than in the dormitory. The good bicycles were moved to the dormitory and locked up. There were also building managers keeping an eye on them. The thieves would not make a move there. As for the old bicycles that were casually left outside, they could not be sold for much money. They were not willing to do it themselves. Therefore, they would make more money during this period. Zhang Tan was not a professional in this field. In addition, he was still in this state, so the methods he could use were limited. The most powerful evidence was photos and videos. However, Zhang Tan could not install a camera or a bug here. He did not have the ability to do so without equipment. However, he could still secretly take a few photos. When it came to taking photos, it seemed that the only tool that he could use was his mobile phone. Zhang Tan came to the old tiled housing area and squatted in front of the old wooden table. He looked at the open drawer and pondered. There were 2 mobile phones in the drawer. One was the one he used to use, and the other was left behind by Lu Ba. He thought that he would not need to use it for a long time. Now, it seemed that he really had to use it. After giving it some thought, Zhang Tan decided to install the new SIM card as well. After the battery was installed, the phone was turned on. There were several applications that Zhang Tan didn't know the functions of. He tried the camera and found that the shooting function was not bad. Even if it couldn't compare to the mobile phones of 4 years later, it was still very good compared to other mobile phones of the same time period. Electronic products were being updated too quickly. 2 years ago, 3,000 to 5,000 were now available for a few hundred yuan. Zhang Tan's old phone had been considered a high-end phone back then, but now it could no longer keep up with the pace. As someone who had been through this before, Zhang Tan knew that even if he had a new phone now, it would soon be eliminated by Lu Ba. Advancing with the times was nothing more than that. Fortunately, Zhang Tan didn't have many requirements now, as long as he could make calls, send text messages, and take pictures. The old phone's pixels weren't good enough, so he could only use the 680. During the day, Zhang Tan did not dare to come openly, so he could only wait until nighttime. Zhang Tan didn't know the names of the 4 people. When they called each other, they didn't call each other by their full names. He also didn't know which school they were from. What he was sure of was that the 4 of them were students of Tsinghua University. On the way back to school, Zhang Tan saw the old car that had been urinated on by Sahara. An unfamiliar student was riding the car and chatting with his classmates. When he arrived at the school gate, he parked the car in a shed near the school gate. "Can't you ride it out? Why did you park it here?" The person riding the old car said. "Brother, it doesn't matter where you park your old car, but I can't afford to lose mine. I heard that it's not safe outside the school, so it's better to park it on campus." The person riding the old car parked it and locked it. "Last month, my girlfriend's folding car that she bought not long ago was stolen. When she bought the car, she specially bought an 80s lock. She didn't buy the 30s or 50s lock. Wasn't it stolen? It was parked near a restaurant outside, but it hasn't been found yet. It's better to park in places with cameras. The chances of it being stolen are lower." The person pointed at the camera not far away. "I think it's better to buy an old car. Look at mine. I just bought it. It's only 50 renminbi. I'm not afraid of it being stolen. Even if it's stolen, I won't feel bad. It's already good enough for this old car to be worth 30 renminbi. 50 renminbi? Did you get scammed? Where did you buy it?" "It's from the horse racing shop not far away. But they said they just changed the brakes. They even have a lock and key. Changing a wire for the brakes only costs 1 or 2 RMB at the repair shop on campus. The cost is even lower. As for the lock and key, who doesn't bring a lock and key?" After the 2 people walked away, Zhang Tan approached the old car. There was still the smell of dog urine on the wheels. It was not easy to smell, so it should have been washed. The car was not repainted. Those people probably thought it was too troublesome. As for the horse racing shop that the student mentioned, it was the shop that Zhang Tan was watching. It was the place where the thieves disposed of the car. After dinner, Zhang Tan put on his vest and went out. He went to the old tile-roofed housing area to install his phone. Then, he walked to the horse racing shop. No one noticed Zhang Tan at night. It was not easy to see through the black vest. No one would stare at a cat in the middle of the night. When he arrived at the horse racing shop, the shop was not closed yet. There were a few people sitting in the shop. Other than the shop owner that he saw during the day, Zhang Tan did not recognize the others. The 4 students who stole the car were not there. Zhang Tan entered the alley next to the shop and jumped onto the wall at the back of the shop. There were a few bicycles parked in the yard. Because they had been painted during the day, there was still some smell. The woman's bicycle that was lost in front of the shop had been changed. The original paint was worn off, and a new paint was sprayed with a different color. For many people who lost their cars, their first thought was to see if it was the same color as their car. After the new paint, it would not be so easy for the owner to see it. The yard was very quiet. There were a lot of goods and parts piled up at the back door of the shop. No one was at the back door. The back door was closed. Probably because the front door was locked, no one would care about the back door. Zhang Tan listened to the surrounding movements. After confirming that no one was nearby, he took out his phone and took pictures. If he wanted to take pictures at night, he had to use the flash. Zhang Tan was afraid that the flash would attract attention. Therefore, after taking a picture, he carefully paid attention to the surroundings. Other than the horse racing shop, he also paid attention to the surrounding residential houses and shops. After confirming that there was no abnormal movement, he continued to take a second picture. The people in the shop were playing cards. No one would have thought that at this time, there was a cat secretly taking pictures with a phone in their backyard. After taking a few key pictures, Zhang Tan jumped onto the courtyard wall and looked around. Zhang Tan planned to take a few more pictures during the day. However, it was not convenient for him to take his phone during the day. Therefore, he planned to hide his phone around tonight. He did not need to wear a vest to take pictures during the day tomorrow. The balcony on the second floor of the shop was relatively narrow. There were some things that had not been touched for a long time. The door at the back of the second floor was also closed. Looking at the marks on the door, it seemed that it was rarely opened. Zhang Tan jumped onto the balcony on the second floor and carefully cleared the messy things. In this way, the things on the side could block the view of the other residents on both sides. There was a gap between two boxes near the railing, which made it convenient for Zhang Tan to take pictures secretly and was not easy to be discovered by the people below. After trying it, Zhang Tan was quite satisfied. When he felt that it was enough, he put down the phone and went home directly. The phone that Lu Ba gave him had a lock function. If the correct password was not entered 3 times, it would be turned off directly and the data inside would be erased. This phone was indeed safer than other phones. It specialized in this kind of thing and was not afraid of being discovered. It would not rain tomorrow. If there was rain or snow, the 4 people would not leave the car outside. After all, this was the car that they wanted to sell. The next day, Zhang Tan did not go out immediately. Instead, he secretly went online to read the discussion about the Sahara incident on the school forum. The hot post was still there. In addition, there were posts about Wan Ying apologizing to the students in the school. Some students even asked Wan Ying to take the Sahara to the veterinary hospital for a checkup. If it was a human, the situation was similar to others saying that you were crazy and had to be sent to the hospital for a checkup. If you did not get a checkup, you were considered a lunatic and a lunatic. To humans, this was undoubtedly an insult. However, when it came to animals, it was natural. Many people asked Wan Ying to show the health records of the veterinary hospital and the recent checkup. It was as if they were unyielding. There was no way Zhang Tan would believe that no one was purposely trying to mess things up. Students would not casually force a teacher or an academician. They did not have the guts. Even if they did, they felt that it was unnecessary. However, not only did these few people say it, they even encouraged others to talk nonsense. They were just talking about the dog, but not long after, they mentioned the project funds. They were suspected of using fake bills to obtain funds for the research project. Some students had already realized that something was wrong and did not speak nonsense. There were scandals of some big shots in universities every year, and they were all famous universities. Tsinghua University had also had such scandals before. However, it was not heard of in recent years. Now that this was mentioned, it was not something that the students could control. It was fine to express their opinions after the incident, but now that the situation was unclear, it was better to remain silent. If they offended someone, they would not be able to bear the consequences. There had been many examples in the past. Young teachers had offended some big shot with prestige and status and had been ostracized and restrained. Some graduate students had been stuck for a few years because of disagreements with their supervisors. These kinds of things were common, and students would gossip about it when they got together. Although there were fewer people speaking on the forum, there were many people paying attention. The students and teachers were all watching. If they did not dare to speak, they would not be allowed to watch. Anyway, it did not involve them. They could just watch the show, right? There were even people who directly said, "Let them fight each other." It was unknown how much resentment they had. Looking at the latest discussions, no one mentioned the female student who was pushed down along with her car by Sahara anymore. Even the mention of Sahara was gradually decreasing. This could be considered to have entered the main topic of the battle, and no one knew when the school would delete the post. Zhang Tan looked for a while and was about to turn off his computer and go out. However, he saw a post that was posted yesterday. It was about a stolen car. He clicked on it to take a look. The person who posted it was a girl. She said roughly when she lost her car and where she lost it. She also posted a picture of the car and asked the students who saw it to inform her. The picture proved that it was the car that Zhang Tan saw. Zhang Tan noticed that one of the pictures that the girl posted was of the car seat. There was a string of English letters printed on the back of the car seat. It was the pinyin of the girl's name. It was written in cursive. People who did not know would probably think that it was the car's brand. This was good evidence. Chapter 358. It was not easy for Zhang Tan to find the 4 students who stole the car, and it was also not convenient to take pictures of them in broad daylight. She could only wait in the backyard of the carriage racing firm. After all, they would come back here after stealing the car. Every time they came here, they would do it together. Because every time they committed a crime, there would be accomplices around to deal with possible situations. For example, when stealing a woman's car, there would be at least one man around. If they were caught stealing a car and quarreled with each other, the 2 girls would quarrel with each other. However, the relatively weaker girls would definitely size up the situation and rarely continue to quarrel. When the man's car was stolen, The girl must have been around as well. If the car thief and the owner got into a fight, the gentle-looking girl student might be able to stop the fight. After all, most men wouldn't hit a girl. Moreover, the people here were all students, and their temperament was relatively simple. Many of them were not so bold. Most of them had the attitude of keeping the peace, which encouraged the arrogance of these people. Zhang Tan came to the back of the shop, jumped over the courtyard wall, and climbed over the second-floor balcony. The gray and inconspicuous mobile phone was lying there. After turning on the phone, Zhang Tan looked around to make sure there was no one around. Then he took the phone and went downstairs to find the car stolen by the girl who posted the post. The body of the car was newly painted, but the seat was still there. Zhang Tan hurriedly took a few more photos, and then went back to the second-floor balcony to wait there. He didn't even go to lunch. The group of people would take advantage of the opportunity when there were many students eating outside the school at noon. If Zhang Tan left now, it would be easy for him to miss them. When it was about 1 o'clock, the door of the backyard opened. It was the same 4 people who pushed the stolen car in. Zhang Tan hurriedly turned on the camera function of the phone and began to shoot. He breathed softly so that the phone could better record their voices. They were talking about how they stole the car at noon and how they were almost discovered. This car was a good one and could be sold for hundreds of yuan after being refurbished. After that, they changed the basket and seat of the bicycle with the new paint. It seemed that they did this on a daily basis. Zhang Tan was glad that he took a few more photos just now. These people were very cautious. Zhang Tan didn't know how long Lu Ba's mobile phone could record continuously. Generally, mobile phones didn't take too long to record a video. However, Zhang Tan recorded continuously for half an hour before the notification ended and he needed to start recording again. Zhang Tan was very satisfied. The clarity was good, and the shooting effect was good. In the yard, a few people were laughing and talking about how much money they would get from selling the stolen cars. They would never have thought that at this moment, a cat was hiding on the balcony on the second floor, behind the pile of junk, secretly taking pictures of their every word and action. At around 2 o'clock, 3 of them left. The remaining one continued to search for new cars. Zhang Tan slipped away while the man was in the toilet. The phone was still in the same place. He couldn't take it away in broad daylight. There was nothing else to take, so he just had to come back at night to take the phone back. After leaving the car shop, Zhang Tan went straight to Zhao Wei's small restaurant. He didn't eat at noon, so he was hungry now. At this time, the peak period had expired, and there were not many students eating. When Zhang Tan arrived at the small restaurant, the last 2 students had finished eating and left. Zhao Wei's parents were cleaning up. After seeing Zhang Tan, Zhao Wei's father helped to heat up the food for Zhang Tan. Zhao Wei's mother called Zhao Pa, black charcoal just came. It seems that it didn't eat. It must have been playing around at noon. I'm heating up the food for it. Zhang Tan was speechless. Auntie, can you make up a better reason? If you say that, you'll be scolded when you go back. After eating, Zhang Tan went to the racetrack to see if there were any other evidence that could be taken. He went home at around 5 o'clock to wait for dinner. At 7:30 in the evening, he put on his vest and went to the racetrack to get his phone back. He put his phone in his vest and returned to the old tiled housing area on campus. Zhang Tan lowered the volume and looked at the videos and recordings on the phone. He felt a sense of accomplishment. With these videos and an analysis of Sahara's behavior that day, he should be able to tell the truth. But soon, Zhang Tan's happy mood slowly cooled down. Then, his beard trembled. He suddenly thought of a very important problem. There was no data cable on this phone. Lu Ba didn't give him a data cable. Where was the memory card? If there was a memory card, Zhao Pa seemed to have a card reader. Zhang Tan looked through the phone. After studying for a long time, he only found the place to put the calling card. He didn't see the memory card. Looking at the data interface, he knew that it wasn't an ordinary data cable. If he couldn't find the card or the data cable, how could he release the evidence he had? There was a Bluetooth function on the phone, but the Zhao family's desktop didn't have it. Zhang Tan was vexed. However, after thinking about it carefully, using the Zhao family's desktop to release these things was a little too eye-catching. After all, it was the campus's intranet. If they wanted to find out who posted these things, they could easily find out. Zhang Tan wasn't a computer expert, so he couldn't deal with those professionals. It wouldn't be good if these things caused trouble for the Zhao family. Although the Zhao Pa was doing well now, he was still a far cry from people like academician Ruan. Now, the higher-ups were fighting silently. If the Zhao Pa was targeted, it wouldn't take much effort. During the selection or other small issues, the Zhao Pa would be very busy. It would be good if academician Ruan was behind the scenes. Unfortunately, some trouble was inevitable. The Zhao Pa had his own plans and pace. Zhang Tan couldn't interfere with the Zhao Pa's plans. This matter was handled by Zhang Tan himself. It had nothing to do with the Zhao Pa. What should he do? Zhang Tan stared at the mobile phone that was playing the video in a low voice. He thought about it and decided to let Lu Ba handle this kind of thing. Did Lu Ba expect today's problem when she left the mobile phone to him? It was too tiring to deal with people with high IQ and flexible minds like them. Zhang Tan sighed in his heart. No matter what, since he had been busy for so long, there was no reason to give up now. Zhang Tan sent a text message to Lu Ba. Lu Ba replied very quickly. He was not in the city and was busy with an order. However, he asked Zhang Tan to send the video directly to him using a software installed on his mobile phone. Lu Ba, who was out of the province, could download the video sent by Zhang Tan and post it on Tsinghua University's campus forum according to Zhang Tan's expectations. Zhang Tan had never seen that software before. Even before he turned into a cat, he had never seen or heard of it. However, since Lu Ba said that it was okay and that it was safe, Zhang Tan had no other choice but to send it directly. While sending the video, Zhang Tan was thinking about how much it would cost based on the amount of data. However, he could continue to send messages after sending the video. He did not receive any notification that he owed money. Zhang Tan did not care much about it. If something happened, Lu Ba would take care of it. After uploading the video, Zhang Tan also edited some relevant information for Lu Ba. Lu Ba said that it would be done tonight. However, Zhang Tan could not go online tonight. He could only wait until tomorrow morning to see how things went. As for the data cable, Lu Ba could not do anything now. It only told Zhang Tan where the memory card was. This was not an all-in-one phone. It was installed with a memory card. However, it was hidden, so Zhang Tan did not find it. According to Lu Ba's instructions, Zhang Tan spent some effort to find it. His claws were not flexible, so it was not convenient for him to play with the phone. Fortunately, he found the place in the end. Lu Ba told Zhang Tan not to use it casually. If he needed help, he could ask for it directly. Zhang Tan thought about it and agreed. With his rubbish technology, he should not waste his time. After arranging everything, Zhang Tan turned off the phone and went back. He broke the battery of the new phone and brought it back. He would use Zhao Ma's all-purpose charger at home tomorrow. Fortunately, the battery could be used in this way. Otherwise, it would be useless if there was only a phone without a data cable or a charger. On the other side, after sending the message and downloading the video, Lu Ba suddenly realized that it did not seem to treat the other party as a cat. It felt like it was chatting with a familiar friend. For example, it felt like it was chatting with a gold tortoise. Lu Ba shook its head with a smile and continued to do its own thing. As long as it did not harm its own interests, it would have more friends and more helpers. From the messages Zhang Tan sent to it, Lu Ba sorted out an article. It inserted many pictures and embedded a few video links. Even if someone deleted the post, they could go to the video website to watch it. The videos posted on the video website could not be deleted easily. In addition, Lu Ba asked the gold tortoise to investigate the carriage racing company. Soon, there was relevant information, and Lu Ba put it in the article. After clicking on the post, Lu Ba thought that Tsinghua University would be lively again. Unfortunately, no one would think of a cat. Lu Ba was excited. It looked through the recent posts on Tsinghua University's forum and grinned. It seemed to be fun. It was waiting to watch the show. The next day, the students of Tsinghua University went crazy. Whether it was those who had not finished the exam, those who had finished the exam and were about to go home, or those who were already at home in front of the computer, all of them went crazy because of the post. Most of the people who were angry were the students who had lost their cars, especially those who had just lost their cars. Whether it was the 4 people who did it or not, it was all on them. As for the others, they felt that the 4 people had embarrassed Tsinghua University and made them lose face. Now, many people in the university were laughing at them. This person with the ID of HT posted a detailed description of the campus car theft gang and the horse racing company. The 4 people who had stolen the cars were also found out. The female student who had lost her car in front of the pancake shop went directly to the female student who had stolen the car and made a scene in the dormitory. It was said that the scene was very lively, and there were pictures on the forum to prove it. Many of the people who had lost their cars were boys. Boys could not be calculative with girls. Even if they were angry, they could not directly vent their anger on girls, right? Therefore, a group of people went to block the other 3 people. Perhaps for many people, it was just a car. Was there a need to make such a scene? But for students, buying a car that was worth 200 to 300 yuan took a long time to negotiate the price. Not long after they bought it, it was stolen. Others could not understand this feeling. When the resentment accumulated to a certain extent, once there was a vent, it would be difficult to control it. It had to be said that these 4 people had not restrained themselves during this period of time. According to the Post, these 4 people had stolen nearly 300 cars. A good car could be stolen and sold for 200 to 300 yuan or even more. There was once when they sold a car that was more than 1,000 yuan. A substandard car, even if it was only a few dozen yuan, was still a lot of money. Especially for these students who had not entered society and did not have much income, it was even more unacceptable. You want to use my car to fill your pockets? I'll beat you up no matter what. Students should understand each other. Understand your sister. Acting pitiful? Bah! You know you're wrong? I'll spit again. Take the initiative to admit your mistakes and resolutely not do it again. Who are you trying to fool? On the new post, there was a photoshopped picture and a caption. Chapter 359. The exposure of the school car theft gang gave a group of students who were waiting to go home after their exams something to pass the time. In a certain male dormitory, a person sat in front of a computer, eating a piece of fried chicken delivered by takeout. There was a bottle of beer next to him. His legs were on the table, and his fingers were typing on the keyboard. His roommate behind him walked over and stared at the screen. Your words are sharp. Who are you talking about? From the pure hearts of kindergarten children to the great harmony of social development? Someone stole cars from our school. There are more than 300 cars. Why are you so agitated? It's not like they stole your car. Watch your words, young man. A gentleman does not speak ill of a friend. Have you heard of that? Brother, have your sneakers been taken by someone before? Have your clothes been taken by someone while you were drying them? Have your quilt been stolen or your water bottle taken? It's the same experience. No, it's worse than stealing your quilt. F***ck. This experience is too deep. Reprimand. Reprimand. F***ck off. You're too slow. Let me do it. Gentlemen cut ties? F***ck. There were many similar situations. Many students were talking about it when they visited their classmates' dormitories. It was the end of the year, and there was nothing else to do except for this big incident. Maslow's theory divided the needs of life into 5 levels. From low to high, they were physiological needs, safety needs, belonging and love needs, respect needs, and self-actualization needs. College students were at the 2nd and 3rd levels of life needs, and were gradually moving towards the 4th and 5th levels. They were also a group of people who were easily affected by emotions. Many times, the first thing they thought of was not how to cover up the scandal, but how to look at the big picture. Their parents had let go, and they were semi-exposed to society. Their edges had not been smoothed out, and they boldly expressed their opinions based on their likes and dislikes to vent their emotions. Just like now, many people were thinking about how to reduce the bad influence of the school, but more people would directly express their thoughts. They would scold when they needed to and had no intention of hiding it at all. The racing car store was splashed with smelly water, thrown things, and written with paint many unsuitable words for children. Don't think that the students of famous schools were a bunch of obedient children. There were many who could cause trouble. Some people said that the people of the racing car store were from the underworld, but so what? Not everyone was afraid of them. After that, the police got involved in the investigation. The school took this matter very seriously. They had no choice but to take it seriously. 2 days later, when Zhang Tan went out again, he found out that the shop had been closed. He heard that the shop owner had been taken away by the police. The 4 students from Tsinghua University who stole the car were expelled from school. They were taken away along with the shop owner for investigation. Generally, the school would punish students by warning, recording demerits, probation, expulsion, and so on. Expulsion was a very serious punishment. After being expelled, the school would not recognize you as a student. All your previous grades and honors would be nullified and recorded in your files. It would be impossible for you to join the army. The political background check would be directly ignored. It was said that during the investigation, those students gave up a few more names, including other students from their school, from other schools, and from other nearby car dealerships. On the day of the investigation, another car shop near the school was closed, and the owner ran away in the middle of the night. They were able to do all this because the boss of the car dealership helped them. Sometimes, there were orders from customers. They would steal whatever car they wanted. Even if these students graduated, the people of the car dealership would recruit new students to join them. In short, there were many people doing this. The racing car store had been operating near the school for many years, and many students were involved. Many people did not understand why the students were still stealing cars when the school had been promoted to such a high level, and it was a famous school. Later, according to those students, it was because the money came quickly. Most of the time, they could earn more than 10,000 yuan a month. Of course, when the money was divided, it might not be so much. But for many students, especially those who did not have good family conditions, this was a good income. But poverty was not a reason to steal. Wang Xing's family conditions were not good either. That child would come here to pick up bottles from time to time. What about these favored children? Using the words of the older generation, intelligence is not used on the right path. No matter how good the school was, there were many people with bad character. One's character was never proportional to one's ability. Actually, when many students bought cars, they knew that there was something fishy about those second-hand or refurbished cars. But it did not affect their own interests, and they could spend less money to buy a car that looked newer. Who would be willing to be a busybody? It was only because of this incident that they opened their mouths. Some things were impossible to guard against. Even if it was a stolen bicycle, no one would stop it. Tsinghua University was so big, and it was impossible to strictly check every bicycle that came in and out. Only when there were some suspicious situations, such as when the lock was not opened, would the person carrying the bicycle out be checked and registered. This incident was undoubtedly a slap in the face to the security office. The security office also told everyone that there would be more cameras after the new year, and places like the car sheds and dormitories were the focus. As for Sahara's incident, a student posted a post explaining it. He had already returned home and did not go online for a few days. He only found out when his classmate called him after the car theft incident. After he found out, he quickly found an internet cafe to post the truth. It turned out that it was one of Ruan Ying's students. They often went to play basketball with Ruan Ying, and Sahara was tied up next to the basketball court. One day, everyone was playing basketball, and there were many people around. They heard Sahara's scream but did not pay attention. When Ruan Ying followed the sound, the student's car was long gone. Perhaps it was at that time that Sahara targeted those people. Every time he saw them, he would target them. Ruan Ying did not think much of it. After all, they were all students, and they did not look like bad people. Things were clear now, and Sahara was no longer a mad dog. Not only that, but he was also praised by many people. However, whether it was criticism or praise, Sahara, who was locked up at home, did not know. The school forum gradually calmed down. After the students caused a ruckus, they rushed home for the new year, and the number of people in the school gradually decreased. Sahara had been taken out, and the rest of the silent battle was left to Professor Ruan and the others. The other small fries would only be cannon fodder. No matter which circle it was, to climb to a certain height, one had to go through countless battles. For example, Zhao Pa had a competitive relationship with some of the teachers in the institute. When dealing with legitimate competition, one had to guard against unfair competition. Although it was good to be kind to others, it was always good to be careful. Just like what Zhao Pa said to his graduate students, when you are a student, you can still focus on scientific research, but when you become a teacher, you may not have the time and mentality to do so. One day a week later, Zhang Tan returned to the courtyard after taking a walk outside. He bumped into Ruan Ying, who was carrying bags of various sizes. Compared to a week ago, when the matter was at its peak, Ruan Ying was in a much better mood. When he saw Zhang Tan, Ruan Ying waved his hand. Black charcoal, let's go. Let's go play with Sahara at home. Zhang Tan also wanted to see how Sahara, who had been cooped up at home all this time, was like. After Wan Ying called out, Zhang Tan followed along. Walking beside Wan Ying, Zhang Tan saw the things in the plastic bags and recognized some of them from the smell. Wan Ying was carrying chicken liver, peanuts, walnuts, sausages, etc. He followed Wan Ying to Sahara's house. When he entered, he saw Sahara lying on the sofa. Normally, he would jump at the door when he heard movement, but now, he just looked up and lay down again, looking listless. Sahara, black charcoal is here. Wan Ying went over and rubbed Sahara's head. Unfortunately, Sahara only swung his tail and was still listless. I know. I wronged you. You've been wronged. I'll cook dog food for you. Wan Ying said. Sahara's nose twitched, but he still didn't get up. After Wan Ying went into the kitchen, Zhang Tan came in front of Sahara. The guy just raised his eyelids and continued lying down. Did he really suffer a blow? Most pets like cats and dogs might have been wronged in their lives. If it was a human, you could tell them if you've been wronged, just say it. But animals couldn't. No matter how intelligent a pet was, it couldn't express its thoughts through human language. Of course, it was a different story for creatures like the general who were naturally gifted in languages and had high intelligence. If you wronged it, it would immediately start a war of words with you. It would spout a bunch of nonsense that it had heard from somewhere, and it would even have a local accent. It was said that once, General's owner, Professor Tan's child, went to a milk tea shop to buy milk tea. The shop would give customers a cardboard card the size of a bank card. There were 30 slots on the back of the card. Each time he bought it, he would stamp it with a small stamp. When all 30 stamps were filled, he would get a free drink. When General followed Professor Tan's child, he grabbed the card and flew to the cashier. He said to the cashier, "Here, stamp it." The cashier listened a few times but didn't understand what the bird was saying. She thought that General didn't speak properly. In the end, when Professor Tan's child went over to explain, she realized that the bird was speaking in a local dialect. Did you say that it was unintentional? Or was it showing off? Or was it showing off? Or was it playing cheap? Zhang Tan was more convinced that the bird was playing cheap. From the very beginning, Zhang Tan did not like the general because he could speak human language. Zhang Tan, who used to be a real human, now possessed the inner qualities of a human. Not only could she not speak human language, she could not even meow like a cat. Among Zhang Tan's cats and dogs, only the sheriff had good language talent and could meow at the dogs. The others couldn't. Cats meowed. Dogs barked. Zhang Tan didn't know how to meow at all. This was a rather depressing fact. Since she had not been driven crazy, Zhang Tan felt that her mental endurance was still quite strong. He looked at Sahara, who was lying on the ground without roaring or rebelling. At first glance, he thought that it had been wronged. If he looked closely, he would find that this fellow's eyes kept drifting to the kitchen. Its ears were also moving to pay attention to the movements in the kitchen. Zhang Tan raised his hand and touched Sahara's ear. It was hot. Suddenly thinking of something, Zhang Tan touched his ear again. It was cold. As he pondered the question of why a dog's ear was hot while a cat's ear was cold, Zhang Tan noticed that Wan Ying had come out with a bowl of rice. Sahara, who had been listless just now, stood up and wagged its tail happily. Its mouth was moving. Not feeling wronged anymore? Wan Ying asked. Woof. Sahara jumped up and barked. Wan Ying placed the bowl in front of Sahara. Sahara didn't care about anything else and started eating. From the way its tail wagged, it was obvious that this fellow was in a good mood. A bowl of food, 2 sentences, a few pats, and a few strokes of its fur. It was immediately revived. Perhaps this was why many people like dogs. Feeling wronged? Chapter 360. Just like the past few years, they went back to Jiaopa's hometown for Chinese New Year. Compared to last year, Zhang Tan finally gave out the highest red packet this year. Jiao Yuan still felt awkward when he received the red packet. Little Pomelo didn't say anything, but when Zhang Tan returned home, he saw little Pomelo putting the red packet with the money into her piggy bank. There was still the red packet from last year in there. Only Jiao Yuan, little Pomelo, and Jiao Pa knew about Zhang Tan's red packet. Jiao Ma didn't know about it, or she would scold her for a long time. After the Chinese New Year, everyone got busy. Some went to work, while others went to school. Zhang Tan was also busy because someone came to him. Yang He was the middleman. The one who really came to Zhang Tan was Li Wei. Li Wei wanted to take a set of photos with animals. It seemed like it was to promote animal protection. Before coming to Zhang Tan, Li Wei had also taken photos with other animals. Although there were several animals, there was only one choice in the end. She chose a photo that was likely to be on the cover of a fashion magazine. This made Xiao Gua very excited. Although it had nothing to do with him, Zhang Tan had signed a contract with his studio. He also had some responsibility, so he paid a lot of attention to this matter. There was a special photography team following Li Wei. They would follow Li Wei to different places to take photos because it was inconvenient for animals like Zhang Tan to go out. Zhang Tan was sent by Xiao Gua to Li Wei's studio in Chuhua City. There were several foreigners in the photography team, and they had to go through a few days of training before taking photos. Zhang Tan didn't know if the animals that he had taken photos with Li Wei had also gone through this training. He only knew that Li Wei's company paid a lot of money this time, and there was also free training. Zhang Tan didn't care. After all, to him, it was just a little boring. When he received the task, Zhang Tan was wondering if he had to walk on the catwalk. However, when he arrived, he realized that he was just following the instructions of those people and making a few poses with Li Wei. It had to be said that a supermodel was indeed a supermodel. Just by standing there, she had an imposing aura. In order not to be outdone by Li Wei, Zhang Tan restrained her indifference. Since she had accepted this assignment, she had to take it seriously. After all, this was related to the prize money. After the photo shoot, Li Wei gave Zhang Tan a red envelope. The money in the red envelope was enough to make up for the red envelopes that Zhang Tan had given out during the new year. This made Zhang Tan very happy. Li Wei and her company's staff didn't stay in Chuhua City for long. They were in a hurry as Li Wei had a show in the near future. Xiao Gua said that if Zhang Tan and Li Wei's photos were selected, Zhang Tan would be rich. There would be other unimaginable opportunities. Zhang Tan didn't really care. As for the opportunities that Xiao Gua mentioned, if it was to shoot a movie again, Zhang Tan didn't want to go again. This kind of experience was enough. He didn't want to specialize in this field. Unlike Cheetah, Li Wei's appearance didn't make much difference to Zhang Tan's life. Zhang Tan was still Zhang Tan, a cat in the courtyard that looked like an ordinary house cat. In the warm spring season, the campus was always more lively, whether it was people or animals. Zhang Tan went out for a walk and came back. He walked downstairs to Depang's balcony and took out his access card and key. He was about to enter the building when he heard a voice from the 4th floor. "There's a monk picking water to drink, he picking water to drink." A bald head came out from the balcony on the 3rd floor and shouted at the 4th floor, "If you sing this song again, I'll go up and pluck your feathers." The B*TCH bird on the 4th floor looked out from the cage and said, "Bald donkey." Zhang Tan and Mao were speechless. Mao wanted to curse, but considering that his daughter was at home, he swallowed the F*CK that jumped out and said to the 4th floor, "Just you wait." F*CK, why hasn't my hair grown out yet? Mao thought angrily. Mao brought his wife and child to live in the courtyard when the weather turned warm in March. It was still the 3-floor apartment that he rented before. The original owner of the apartment had already taken away many things and cleared out a room. The study was changed into a baby's room. The nanny hired for the 2nd bedroom, Black Rice, was also brought over. Because it had lived here before, it was familiar with the smell. Black Rice adapted quickly and didn't cry out anxiously because of the change of place. With the nanny helping to clean up, the house wasn't as messy as before. After all, Mao was a married man with a child. Compared to his unruly self in the past, the current Mao was much more mature. Of course, if it wasn't for the bald head, some people would still believe that Mao had matured. But with the bald head, the smell changed. Speaking of Mao's bald head, it was his daughter's birthday this year. Mao was so happy that when he blew out the candles for his daughter, he got too close and the candles burned a tuft of hair in front of his head. Fortunately, it wasn't burned and nothing happened. Mao simply shaved his head bald. The 1-year-old Yuan would slap her father's bald head twice and slap it loudly. Mao didn't get angry and just let her slap it. Did his daughter think that his long hair was too prickly? Shave it again. Just like how the 3rd Master Feng doted on his daughter, he let them pull his hair and slap his face. As long as his daughter was happy, nothing was a problem. His wife and daughter didn't mind Air Mao's bald head, but this bald head often gave people a bad first impression. For example, a few days ago, Air Mao brought his daughter to see a flower show. When they came out, they were stopped by the guards there. Even the police who happened to be patrolling the area came over to ask about the situation. They asked Air Mao to show his identification and looked at him suspiciously. With a shaved head and sunglasses, he didn't look like a decent man. He was also carrying a clean and beautiful girl in his arms. No matter how you looked at it, it was suspicious. In addition, there were a few cases of child trafficking before the new year, so Air Mao was stopped directly. This incident was often laughed at by Qin Tao and the others. They said that Air Mao wasn't suitable for shaving his head. Therefore, Air Mao decided that unless his hair fell out naturally, he shouldn't learn to shave his head. Because his wife and her friend went abroad to attend a cat show, Air Mao directly brought his daughter to live in the courtyard of Tsinghua University. Compared to the environment and atmosphere in his home, he preferred this place. There were more children here, and the people around were good. Air Mao didn't expect his daughter to be knowledgeable and versatile in the future. As long as she was healthy, it would be fine. This place was just a supporting role. Air Mao's parents were quite supportive of this. Nowadays, the relationships between neighbors in many communities were very indifferent, and people didn't know each other well. In addition, Air Mao's parents didn't believe in Air Mao's character. If they could grow up in a good environment, at least their granddaughter wouldn't be as ugly as her father, right? But Air Mao didn't expect that the bird on the 4th floor would mock him as soon as he moved in. Why did it have to sing monk of all things? Wasn't it obvious that it was being sarcastic? Now, even Bald Donkey came out. This was too much. Except for the problem with this B*TCH bird, Air Mao felt that life here was quite harmonious. With a nanny, he didn't have to worry about food and drink. He just needed to take care of his daughter every day. Although Air Mao didn't seem to be working every day, his wallet was always full of money. Once in a while, he checked the money in his bank card. Oh, there were hundreds of thousands more. Even Air Mao's parents didn't know how much investment Air Mao had made. In the past, the old couple urged Air Mao to do something serious to save money to marry a wife. Now, Air Mao's wife was married and had a child. Their wallet was full, so the old couple didn't care about Air Mao anymore. Instead of getting a headache every time they talked about Air Mao, it was better to talk about their granddaughter. Every afternoon, Air Mao would bring his daughter downstairs to exchange experiences with other people in the courtyard who brought their children out for walks. The old people in the courtyard were very enthusiastic about these children. Air Mao even put Air Yuan on the back of Little Blossom a few times. Many children in the courtyard liked Little Blossom very much. Compared to the bull-headed terrier Zhuangzhuang, who was small in size, deformed, and fierce in many people's eyes, Little Blossom was a gentle big fellow and was very popular among the children. Of course, not many parents would let their children interact with bull-headed terriers. Everyone knew that this kind of dog wasn't easy to get along with. Moreover, bull-headed terriers did bite people more than once. This morning, Zhang Tan planned to go out for a walk. When he went downstairs, he saw Air Mao moving a 4-wheeled children's princess car downstairs. After moving it, Air Mao went upstairs to pick up his daughter. Was he going to walk the child again? Zhang Tan had tried to lift the car before. It was about 30 kilograms. Because it didn't look conspicuous, he thought it would be the same as the plastic cars the children in the courtyard used. He didn't expect that it would be heavier. Air Mao didn't find it troublesome to move it up and down several times a day. If one looked closely, they would find that there was something special in the baby car. Many protective measures were well done. It was definitely sturdier and safer than it looked. After Air Mao carried Air Yuan downstairs, he let Air Yuan open the door and climb into the car. Air Yuan was a little over a year old, not even a year and a half. She could walk, but she couldn't run. It was a little strenuous for her to get into the car. However, probably because she had done this before, she was familiar with the series of movements. Air Mao helped her when she couldn't climb in. After Air Yuan got into the car and sat down, Air Mao asked her to fasten her seatbelt. Zhang Tan looked. There was indeed a seatbelt. The equipment was quite complete. Air Mao was wearing a set of sportswear today. After everything was ready, he took out a small remote control and started walking. At the same time, the princess car that Air Yuan was sitting in started moving. Using a car to walk children seemed to be more common now. It wasn't as rare as when little kitten Joie used to be. This method was also liked by many young parents. When Mao ran faster than the car, he would slow down and change from running to walking. When the car came over, he would start jogging again. No matter what, Mao wouldn't let the children's car get away from him. Yuan seemed very excited. She wasn't afraid at all and kept smiling. Sometimes, she would even pat the steering wheel that didn't really work. Zhang Tan looked at the two of them. Taking a child for a walk so early in the morning, they were really in the mood. Chapter 361. In April, all the smiling flowers in the school had bloomed. One could smell their fragrance on the streets. Mao steered his daughter's car and drove on a path with few people. On the main road of the school, cars and pedestrians came and went in a hurry. It was not safe and there was also car exhaust. The path was different. It was safe and quiet. There were many flowers and trees and the air was better. Mao taught his daughter how to recognize things as they walked. Trees, birds, flowers, clouds. Mao taught a word and Mao would say it. If it was not right the first time, he would teach it a second time and a third time until it was right. Zhang Tan used to think that Mao was unreliable. He did not expect him to be so patient with his daughter. When he was raising black rice, he seemed to be quite patient too. He taught her as they walked and even took a few photos with his camera. Mao had taken many photos of Black Rice's daily life when he was raising Black Rice. Now, his pleasure was to take photos of Mao and Black Rice. To Mao, repeating the same thing every day was a pleasure. As they walked, Mao paused. He stopped Mao's car and looked ahead with a frown. Zhang Tan's ears twitched. He also heard something unusual in front of him. Ouch! A person rolled down the slope at the fork in front. His face was bruised and his body was in a mess. It was obvious that he had just been beaten up. Zhang Tan could smell alcohol and some other unpleasant smells from the wind blowing over. After that person, another 3 people jumped down from the slope and kicked the person who was rolling on the ground a few more times. They were also cursing him. Before the people in front started to punch and kick, Mao put his hand into the children's car to cover Mao's eyes. He tried to talk to Mao to distract him. At the same time, he used his other hand to control the children's car and was about to leave. He did not care about this kind of thing. Unexpectedly, the person in front saw Mao and walked over. He looked angry. His long sleeves were rolled up, revealing the tattoo on his arm. Mao frowned even harder. He turned the children's car so that Mao could not see the person who was walking over. "Hey you!" The person pointed at Mao. To be exact, he pointed at the digital camera hanging around Mao's neck. "You took a picture, didn't you?" What the man meant was that Mao had taken a picture of what they had done and wanted to check it. However, from what Zhang Tan saw, he didn't just want to check if there were any photos taken of them. From the look in his eyes, it was obvious that he wanted to take the camera for himself. After all, this was an SLR camera, and it was a famous brand. It was worth a lot of money. Zhang Tan looked around. Although last year's car theft incident had caused the school to install surveillance cameras in some of the car sheds and dormitories, there were no cameras installed in remote and quiet places like the small paths. The students probably didn't think much of it. After all, there were many people doing things that were not suitable for children in these remote places. There were no cameras. Other than when the security guards were patrolling, no one would pay attention to this side. If they accidentally bumped into a young couple, they would be scolded by the students for being nosy and not doing their job properly. At this time, there were not many people here, and there was no one else on this road. If it was just Mao alone, Zhang Tan was not worried. Mao could definitely deal with them easily, but now Mao had his daughter with him. Mao saw the person approaching, and the other 2 people who were kicking people over there also looked over. Mao looked around and smiled. He seemed to be trying to curry favor with the person. He looked very nervous as he said to the person, "Big brother, can we find a place to talk? This is not a good place." Mao pointed at the road. There were cars passing by at the intersection they had just passed. The person probably thought about it and didn't want to make things known, so he nodded. In their view, this was just a young teacher in the school. Generally speaking, students and young teachers were more timid and easy to bully. After Mao finished speaking, he took out his phone to check the time and put it back in his pocket. This made the person's eyes brighten. The phone was also a good phone. Maybe he even had money on him. It seemed that he had a lot of money. Because Mao was misunderstood because he shaved his head, he always wore a hat when he came out in school. Today, he didn't wear sunglasses. Since he was young, it was understandable that he was mistaken for a teacher in the school. The man pointed to a spot on the slope. There were also some stone tables and benches. Usually, there would be some students sitting there for their morning reading. But today, probably because of these few people, there was not a single student there. Black charcoal, help me look after Yuan. Mao pushed the children's stroller to the side near the lawn. This way, it would not be easy for the stroller to slip. Then, he walked up the slope with the leader. Yuan was still looking left and right for Mao. Zhang Tan poked a little doll tied to the stroller to attract Mao's attention, so that the little guy wouldn't cry. At the same time, Zhang Tan also pricked up his ears and listened carefully to the movements on the slope. If Mao was alone, the three people over there could be easily dealt with. The three guys looked fierce, but in reality, they were far inferior to those who really fought. They were only strong on the surface. It was okay to bluff those naive students, but to pretend in front of an expert, it could only be said that they had a death wish. The truth was just as Zhang Tan thought. Mao knew very well how strong the three of them were. He was confident that he could deal with them. In addition, he was worried that Yuan would cause trouble if he left for too long, so he quickly went up the slope. He wasn't afraid of being found out. He just didn't want Yuan to see such a violent scene. Looking at the three guys who were curled up like shrimps on the ground, Mao picked up a business card on the ground. It had fallen from the leader, and there were the words, XX Guarantee Investment Company, on it. Pfft, I thought it was a loan shark, Mao said disdainfully. No. We are just helping debt collectors. The man said with some difficulty. He wanted to defend himself, but Mao quickly interrupted him. It's none of my business if you're a loan shark or a debt collector. Mao raised his hand and patted the man's face. You don't even know what to do. You're blind. When I came out, you were still in some corner. You're not even older than me. The leader cursed in his heart, but he didn't dare to show it on his face. Otherwise, he would be greeted with more than just 2 punches. He thought that this person was a young teacher who was easy to deal with. Now that he took off his hat and revealed his short hair, which looked like he had just been released from prison, coupled with his bandit aura, the leader was about to vomit blood in his heart. F***ck, he shouldn't have come out today. Why did he come here so early in the morning to collect debts? Mao didn't want to bother with these 3 small fries anymore. He quickly put on his hat and punched again. If it was before he got married, he wouldn't have punched so lightly. At least there would be blood. Now, he didn't want his hands to be stained with blood. He still had to push his daughter's stroller. He flicked the leaves and invisible dust off his body and walked quickly to the children's stroller. As for the person lying in the middle of the path, Mao didn't even look at him. There were too many temptations in this society. Many people found it hard to resist and gradually became addicted to it. Especially those students who had weak resistance to temptation but wanted to enter the world of sensual pleasures. It was acceptable for people who borrowed money because of their family's financial situation. However, Mao wouldn't even look at people who loitered around sensual places and borrowed money because of some bad habits. In order to avoid the sensitive words usury, many private usury companies would put up signboards such as investment company or guarantee company. However, private usury companies had developed to this point, and it was difficult to find loopholes in them. Whether it was the IOU or the mortgage procedures, they were very complete. Moreover, these companies avoided all risks when dealing with loan sharks. It was difficult to win a lawsuit. Private loan sharks were not under the supervision of the Banking Regulatory Bureau. Loan companies under the supervision of the Provincial Finance Office needed to obtain a business license, and the examination and approval were very strict. Private loan sharks were obviously illegal, but it was difficult to forcibly stop them. As for these people who helped to collect debts, guarantee companies worked with debt collection companies the most. If they helped to collect debts, if something happened, the loan shark company would be able to get rid of the trouble easily. It was a win-win situation. These 3 people were just small fries in the debt collection company. They couldn't cause any waves and didn't dare to take revenge. Mao could see this, so he didn't need to spend too much effort. With Yuan Air's hearing, it was difficult to hear what they were saying. However, Zhang Tan heard the conversation between Mao and that person clearly. However, he didn't think too much about it. After Mao came over, he left. In the next few days, Zhang Tan didn't see the three people when he walked around the school, so he threw this matter to the back of his mind. At the end of May, Zhang Tan heard from little Pomelo that little Pomelo was on leave recently. He was a little worried and planned to go there. If he couldn't find her at school, he would go to the blind old man to take a look. Unexpectedly, near little Pomelo's school, Zhang Tan saw the three people who helped to collect debts that Mao had taught a lesson to. In the middle of the three people, there was a bearded man in ragged clothes. Zhang Tan had never seen him before, so he didn't have a good impression of him. The four of them were nestled next to a shop near the school. They looked impatient as they looked at the school gate. The ragged man was trembling with fear. He was very afraid of the three people. The four of them seemed to be waiting for someone. Zhang Tan carefully approached them and eavesdropped on their conversation. "Who is it? Did you see her? Are you King lying to us?" The leader said in a bad tone. "No, definitely not. Her sister said she saw her going to school here." The man in ragged clothes cowered. "Then why don't I see her? Go in and ask her to come out." "I don't know which class she's in. I only know that she's called Huang Jiu now." Zhang Tan was shocked. "Huang Jiu? Wasn't that little Jiu?" That person. After eavesdropping on their conversation, Zhang Tan found out that the bearded man was little Jiu's biological father. He was also the one who sold little Jiu. He drank too much, gambled too much, and now it seemed that he owed loan sharks. He sold his daughter and now he wanted his daughter to help him pay off his debt? Little Jiu's relationship with her family was very weak before she was sold. After she was sold, little Jiu had probably given up on her family. Little Jiu was clearly living well now, so why did this person still come looking for her? Was this the reason why little Jiu took leave these few days? "Hey, that. One of the three people who helped collect debts pointed at a girl standing not far away. Chapter 362. She was standing outside during school hours, not even carrying her school bag. She was only holding a file and looking over coldly. This was very different from the little Nine that Zhang Tan usually saw. Little Nine, this child, if she was good to others, she would be very considerate of others. Conversely, when she did not like anyone, even if it was her biological father, not to mention that this biological father had sold her. If it was not for Zhang Tan helping her at that time, perhaps little Nine would have been long gone. She repaid kindness with kindness and revenge with hatred. She was decisive and ruthless. Perhaps, this was the reason why blind Lord Kuan allowed little Nine to stay. With little Nine's current background, there was no need to be afraid of these people. Therefore, Zhang Tan was not worried that little Nine would be bullied by them. He was only worried that with little Nine's age, it would be hard for her to make a decision. When these people saw little Nine, they were very excited. Little Nine's father wanted to shout and scold a few habitual words, but little Nine just waved her hand, indicating for them to change places to talk. "Hey, you made me look for you, you." Little Nine's father wanted to make a move after going over, but when he met little Nine's eyes, he stopped abruptly. He was afraid. Without taking another look at this blood-related father, little Nine brought the four of them to a restaurant that wasn't too big. There was a "closed for business" sign hanging at the door. Little Nine ignored it and pushed the door open and went in. The boss and employees were doing their own things as usual. They were not curious about the 5 people who came in, as if they already knew. They did not look and were doing their own things. The 5 of them sat around a table. The waiter handed them a cup of water. Yes, only 1 cup of water, and it was only placed in front of little Nine. As for the other 4, they were treated as air. "Hey, what's going on here? Don't you know that the customer is God? If you don't even know this, how can you do business?" The leader shouted. As soon as he said that, the 3 waiters and the boss in the restaurant rolled up their sleeves and looked over, their eyes extremely unfriendly. "Why don't I send you to meet God?" the boss said with a faint smile. The leader choked and turned back resentfully, not wanting to argue anymore. He just wanted to collect his debt and go back. Little Nine drank some water, put down the cup and was about to say something when he saw a black cat standing outside the window. A smile flashed across his originally complicated eyes, and he quickly got up to open the door. "Black charcoal." The leader's face twitched. "Black cat again?" Previously, When they were beaten up in Chuhua University, a black cat was also present. As expected, nothing good ever came out of running into a black cat. However, why did this cat's name sound like the black cat from that day? Could it be the same one? However, this place wasn't very close to Chuhua University. After Zhang Tan entered the room, he squatted down on a chair at the side, watching the development of the situation and helping Little Nine. One of the employees in the shop pointed at the boss with his mouth. "Boss, there's a cat." Another employee whispered to the boss, "That cat is very calm. Does it know Little Nine? You're quite brave, not afraid of strangers at all." The restaurant owner's mouth twitched. He had heard that this cat even dared to play with Lord Kuen's beard. What else would it not dare to do? Others might not know, but he had heard of the rumors about this cat. Because of Zhang Tan's participation in the shop, the atmosphere in the shop changed slightly. Little Nine took a deep breath and took out something from the document bag. It was a thin piece of paper that looked like it had just been printed. There were no wrinkles or stains on the paper, and it was pale white. Little Nine pushed the paper in front of her father and said, "After signing this agreement, we'll go our separate ways and have nothing to do with each other." Little Nine's father was illiterate, but he could still understand most of the words. On the paper, it was very clear that Little Nine would help him pay off his debt, and then they would not owe each other anything. Seeing that he could pay off the debt, Little Nine's father did not think much about it. He picked up a pen and signed his name on the paper, and even pressed his thumbprint. Little Nine lowered her eyelids so that the people around them could not see what she was thinking. She looked very calm, but Zhang Tan could tell from Little Nine's clenched fists that this child was not as calm as she appeared. No matter what, they were blood relatives. When the man signed the agreement, he did not hesitate. Zhang Tan did not know what to say. Mao and the man in front of him were both fathers, but why was there such a big difference? Was it because of poverty? Or was it because of other reasons? This agreement was just a test by Little Jiu. When Elder Kuen decided to let Little Jiu stay, the various procedures had already been completed. Little Jiu no longer had anything to do with this family. Even if they were to meet in court, there was enough evidence to prove that they had an overwhelming victory. From the moment the man signed the agreement, Little Nine had really cut off all ties with the past. She crumpled the paper into a ball and threw it into the trash bin. Just as the man in front of her was about to shout, Little Nine took out a card and placed it in front of the debt collector. "The password is 6 nines. As Little Nine spoke, he took out $300 bills from his pocket and pointed at the blood-related people sitting across from him. However, he looked at the leader and said, "Send this person back to where he came from. I don't want to see him again. If he appears here again, he and all of you will not be able to leave." "Are you threatening me?" The leader stood up. However, before he could stand up straight, a kitchen knife chopped at the side of his arm. It almost cut into the table. His sleeve was already cut. If it had been just a little bit more, a piece of flesh would have been cut off from his arm. Good knife skills, Zhang Tan thought. Regardless of whether it was the 3 debt collectors or Little Nine's father, their faces were all pale. The leader's face twitched a few times as he looked in the direction where the knife came from. On the other side, the restaurant owner was sitting at the cashier counter. His fingers were rhythmically tapping on the table. He had the same smile on his face as usual, as if he had just done something very normal. "Oh, sorry, my hand slipped. I was going to chop the fly." A waiter sitting at the door looked at the people on the table and laughed. On his finger, a table knife spun quickly. It was as natural as spinning a pen. His finger was unharmed. F***ck, I definitely can't come to this restaurant to eat in the future. I won't come even if I starve to death. This was the thought shared by the 3 debt collectors. If they still didn't understand the situation now, they would be retarded. Fortunately, the 3 debt collectors weren't that retarded. They knew how to judge the situation. Since they couldn't be strong here, and they had already gotten the money, it was right to leave as soon as possible. Forcing themselves to be calm, the leader put away the card and the 300 yuan. He grabbed the bearded man and hurried out. After walking a distance, the 3 debt collectors let out a long breath. After the shock, they were furious. The leader raised his hand and slapped Little Nine's father. "It's all because of you. F***ck. The bearded man didn't dare to defend himself. He continued to cower. "What do we do now?" another person asked. "What else can we do?" Of course, we have to find an ATM and see if there's money in the card. If there's no money, should we go back and ask for more? The three of them fell silent. The atmosphere in the restaurant suddenly became harmonious. The waiter and boss comforted Little Nine. They knew Little Nine, and Little Nine often came here to eat. Sometimes, Little Nine even took an afternoon nap here. The boss put down a plate of rice in front of Little Nine. Eat. After eating, hurry back to class. Little Nine took a spoon and ate spoonful by spoonful. She didn't eat breakfast in the morning. Because of this incident, she didn't have much of an appetite. Her head was very low. As she ate, tears fell. Her face was expressionless. After all, she was still a child. The people in the restaurant didn't say anything. The boss patted her head gently and put a bowl of warm red bean paste beside her. After eating and drinking the red bean paste, Little Nine turned back into the lively Little Nine. Zhang Tan sent Little Nine to school. He was worried that Little Nine would be scolded for being late for 2 classes. Who knew that when she entered the school, Little Nine would take out a sick leave slip and a hospital certificate from her bag. Seeing Little Nine's red eyes, the person in charge at the school gate didn't say anything and let her in. Zhang Tan. After seeing Little Nine enter class, Zhang Tan went back. Whether it was Little Nine or Little Pomelo, their classes went up along with their grades. Zhang Tan couldn't go up. In the restaurant that Little Nine had stayed in, the closed for business sign had been removed. Hey boss, who are those 3 cowards from just now? Why are they so arrogant? The staff asked. The boss waved his hand casually. They aren't anything presentable. Just throw them out of the underworld another day. The 3 people who were labeled as not presentable looked at the numbers on the ATM and were immersed in the world of how much money they could get. They didn't know that they were being targeted. Just as someone once said, if you didn't have the foresight, you wouldn't last long in any industry. Zhang Tan went back to school with a heavy heart because of Little Nine. He thought about how Air Mao treated Air Yuan and how Little Nine's father treated Little Nine. The difference was huge. However, Zhang Tan thought about the time before he became a cat. That irresponsible father that he only saw a few times a year. Then he thought about the current Jiao Pa. TSK. Familial love was actually quite complicated. That wasn't right. Was it familial love or the human heart that was complicated? When he passed by the kindergarten, Zhang Tan stopped in his tracks. Zhua Kitten's last class in the morning seemed to be an outdoor activity class. Thus, Zhang Tan jumped to the fence and squatted down, waiting for their outdoor activity class to arrive. Recently, Zhua Kitten's mood wasn't good. Why? Zhua Kitten wanted to go to primary school, but the teacher objected. 6 years old was the legal age to enroll in school. In some places it was still 7 years old. If one was too young, there might be all kinds of inconveniences. For many children, enrolling in school early wasn't a good thing. The school was also in a difficult position. Some time ago, when Zhang Tan came here, he heard Zhua Kitten complain that their teacher wanted him to go to preschool for a year. However, that little brat had told Zhang Tan in private that even if he went to Lord Buddha to roll around, he would still go to primary school this year. Because, if Zhua Kitten went to primary school, according to little Zhua's promise, she should come back. When the outdoor class started, the children in Zhua Kitten's class all ran out, fighting for their favorite ladders and castles. Only Zhua Kitten looked at the fence first. Then, she smiled and ran over. As she ran, she shouted, brother, hey, let me tell you." Chapter 363. Compared with some time ago, Zhua Kitten's mood today seems to be quite good. And the words, "I'll tell you," indicate that there will be a long conversation. Although every time Zhang Tan comes over, Zhua Kitten is talking, but today this guy looks like he will say more. Sure enough, Zhua Kitten then said that he went to find Lord Zhang, and proudly described how he used his clever brain to pretend to be pitiful in front of Lord Zhang, how to roll around, how to negotiate with Lord Zhang. Zhang Tan suddenly remembered a time when she went out for a stroll on the old street. When she walked past a tofu stall, she heard a few aunties say that the child who bought the tofu used her brain to make tofu even though she was supposed to be a doctor. But now, Zhang Tan saw that Zhua Kitten's IQ was used to make a scene, and she even succeeded in doing so. After a lot of preamble and foreshadowing, Zhua Kitten stared at Zhang Tan with bright eyes, and his mouth couldn't help but open. "Brother Hey, Grandma Yi agreed that I should go to primary school this year." The Grandma Yi, in Zhua Kitten's mouth is Lord Zheng. Lord Zheng's real name is Yi He. Usually, Zhua Kitten directly calls Lord Zheng Grandma Yi. In addition to Grandma Yi, there are Grandma Li, Grandpa Zhang, Grandma Lu, and a lot of other grandparents. With the help of these elders who have a lot of power, it is not a problem for Zhua Kitten to go to primary school in advance. Moreover, Zhua Kitten has been tested by the affiliated primary school. There is no problem in the first grade at all. There is no need to go through another back door. If it weren't for Zhua Kitten's young age, the teacher in charge of the test would have almost said that the child didn't need to go to the first grade. Zhang Tan knew that this little guy had a higher IQ than the other children. While the other children were still barely able to recognize numbers, he had already come into contact with pi. While the other children were scrambling to show that they could memorize the decimal places of pi, this little brat had already come into contact with three-dimensional geometry. This was because once, when Zhang Tan came over, she saw Zhua Kitten holding a small rubber ball to measure its diameter. On the penultimate page of his sketchbook, there was a formula for calculating the volume of the ball. Zhang Tan had no idea how knowledgeable the 5-year-old Zhua Kitten was. Usually, she only heard the kindergarten teachers say that Zhua Kitten was a smart child, but they rarely mentioned the word genius. It was enough to show that Zhua Kitten was still quite low-key and restrained. At most, she would deliberately tease the teachers and classmates. Brother hey, do you think my mother will come back after I go to primary school? Zhua Xiaomao looked at Zhang Tan expectantly. How would I know? Zhang Tan cursed in his heart. Perhaps only Lord Zhang and the woman who usually took care of little kitten Zhua knew about it. By the way, I asked Mom on Mother's Day. Mom said that she would come back when I was in elementary school, Zhua Kitten said softly as she kicked the wall lightly. Mother's Day had just passed. According to Zhua Kitten, although little Zhua had not returned, he would have video calls with Zhua Kitten every once in a while. Mother's Day was also the time for video calls. Since little Zhua had said so, could he really come back this year? If that was the case, that would be great. Although Zhua Kitten usually lived a good life, she did not have her parents by her side for as long as she could remember. Compared to other children, she would always be lacking. Even if her intelligence was higher than other children, she was still a child after all. Zhua Kitten had already determined that her mother would come back this year. Therefore, other than being more talkative than usual, she was also exceptionally happy. Once she was happy, Zhua Kitten treated the other students especially well. She was very patient with the students who came to ask her questions and did not tease them anymore. Zhang Tan did not know if little Zhua could come back or not. If she could not come back this year, how depressed would Zhua Kitten be? Although she was still a child, sometimes it was difficult to deal with children when they were serious. On the other side of the ladder, there was a child who was crying with snot all over his face. The more the teacher comforted him, the harder the child cried. Zhang Tan looked over there. He felt that he should think about what to prepare for Zhua Kitten as a gift for June 1st. When the time came, it would also be a consolation gift. Since junior high school, June 1st was just a date. It no longer had that special meaning. However, for every child in primary school, it was a memorable holiday. On that day, they would have performances, singing and dancing, snacks from the school, and holidays. On that day, it would be very smooth to ask their parents for gifts. When the new year came, Zhang Tan gave Zhua Kitten a big red packet. It was not good to give another big red packet on June 1st. If there was no red packet, what should he give? For the next few days, Zhang Tan had been thinking about it. It just so happened that Xiao Guo's shop had recently held an event. Xiao Guo had customized some gifts as gifts for those VIP customers. Most of these gifts were cat-shaped and dog-shaped dolls, ranging from small phone accessories to big pillows and stuffed toys that were about the size of humans. Of course, any kind of gift would have to correspond to the VIP membership points. The few biggest stuffed toys were specially used by Xiao Guo to please a few special customers. Every time those customers came, Xiao Guo could always make a lot of money. Zhang Tan could not have any ideas about those things, so he set his eyes on the pillows. He chose purely based on the value of the toys. Since he could not pick the biggest one, he would pick the second biggest one. One day, after going to the pet center for a routine shoot, Zhang Tan did not ask for the overtime pay that Xiao Guo gave him. Instead, he took a pillow with him. The original shape of the gifts was based on the cats and dogs in the studio. Even the paparazzi dolls were included. They did not have front legs. There were only 2 protrusions on the front legs, and they used their hind legs to maintain balance. Needless to say, this cat that was rescued by the dog from the earthquake was quite popular. Many people wanted to give away the phone chain and the dolls that looked like this guy. Although Zhang Tan was also very popular in the cat community, because of the color of his fur, the dolls that were given as gifts did not have much of an advantage compared to other cats. When Charlie sent Zhang Tan back to the Jiao family, he also sent the BC pillow that Zhang Tan had chosen to the Jiao family. The front was a black cat's head, and the back was embroidered with the letters BC. Jiao Ma thought that Zhang Tan had brought it back for himself. She did not expect that Zhang Tan had not opened the package. Because June 1st was on Monday this year, and the Dragon Boat Festival was close to June 1st, the kindergarten was on holiday from the Dragon Boat Festival to June 1st, which was a full 5 days of holiday. If Zhang Tan wanted to give a gift, he could only choose the day before the holiday to bring the person to the courtyard. Otherwise, how could he give away such a big pillow? It was too inconvenient. Zhang Tan ran to the entrance of the kindergarten 10 minutes before school ended. He knew that the person in charge of taking care of Xiaofan, who was called Little Wan by Lord Zhang, would be waiting 10 meters to the left of the school entrance, so he walked over there. Generally speaking, Little Wan would arrive 5 to 10 minutes early. After all, sometimes the kindergarten's end time was not so strict, and there was a certain amount of flexibility. But today, after Zhang Tan arrived, he waited for a few minutes and did not see Little Wan arrive. Just as he was wondering why Little Wan had not arrived yet, Zhang Tan heard someone call his cat name. Black Charcoal? Hearing this voice, Zhang Tan's first reaction was to find it familiar. His second reaction was to turn his head and look. After seeing the person's face clearly, Zhang Tan was a little absent-minded. It was not until the person called out, Black Charcoal, that Zhang Tan reacted. Little Joie. It was Little Joie. Zhang Tan felt that his eyes were a little sore. The person in front of him was Little Joie, but he looked different from before. In Zhang Tan's memory, Little Joie's deepest impression was the image of Little Joie holding a book and sitting on a bench by the artificial lake. That young and gentle person was one of the 3 trump cards of the famous Lord Zhang, with unlimited potential. Because of Zhuo Xiaowan, Zhang Tan often saw some of the students under Lord Zhang. Some stayed in school, some went abroad to further their studies and came back. They did not look much different from when they left. At most, they became a little more radiant. After all, they were all going to higher places. Little Joie, who was the same age as them, looked younger than those people back then. Only 4 or 5 years had passed, but Little Joie looked like he had experienced more than 10 years. Not only that, but he also had a thin and sickly feeling. Even the clothes he used to wear now looked like they were 1 size bigger. Zhang Tan recalled some things that Jiao Pa had said. Some projects were more harmful to people. Even if there were protective measures, they could not be completely avoided. It was as if he had overdrawn his life. No wonder Jiao Pa said that the project was very dangerous. No wonder so many people could not come back. No wonder Lord Zhang opposed her participation in the project. When Zhang Tan looked at Little Joie had already walked in front of Zhang Tan. Squatting and reaching out to touch Zhang Tan's forehead, Little Joie smiled and said, "Are you scared? Don't worry, you'll get better after a period of rest." Little Joie knew that he was not in good shape now. Generally speaking, after the completion of the project, he could apply to leave and recuperate there for a period of time. There would be specialized treatment staff to help treat him. Little Joie's original plan was to recuperate there and come back when he looked better. However, the conversation with Zhuo Xiaowan on Mother's Day made Little Joie change his mind. Zhuo Xiaowan video chatted with Little Joie every year, so Little Joie could be recognized by Zhuo Xiaowan even if he did not do any recuperation treatment. When she saw the black cat squatting in front of the kindergarten just now, she was actually a little nervous. She was worried that the cat would not recognize her if she left for too long. But in fact, from the black cat's eyes, she knew that the cat still remembered her. It was just that it was a little frightened by her current appearance. After all, she now looked like she had aged more than 10 years. In addition to wrinkles, there were some spots. Her face was far less radiant than before. Even if her former classmates saw her current appearance, they might not be able to recognize her. When Little Joie came back yesterday, Lord Zhang also recognized Little Joie immediately. When he saw Little Joie's appearance, Lord Zhang, who usually had a straight face and did not have much expression, directly reddened his eyes. However, he did not say much. He only said, "It's good that you're back." When she was young, she was more willful. She was always unwilling to listen to others' advice. She also did a lot of wrong things and made decisions impulsively. In the past few years, she had thought things through and understood a lot. The person she was most sorry to was Xiaofan. Now that she was back, she would not leave again. In the rest of her life, she would always be with Xiaofan and watch him grow up. Little Xua was still about to talk to Zhang Tan when a child came out of the kindergarten over there. Xiaofan ran out. Usually, she did not see this kid so impatient. "Mommy, mommy." Xiaofan, who ran out, looked over. After seeing little Xua, her anxious and worried face immediately turned into a smile. Xiaofan threw herself into little Xua's arms. Then she lowered her head and called Zhang Tan. "Brother Black." She said to little Xua, "Mommy, mommy, let's invite Brother Black to eat together." "Black charcoal. Do you want to join us?" Little Xua looked at Zhang Tan. Zhang Tan turned his head. "Forget it today. Let the mother and son spend more time together." Seeing Xiaofan's joy, it would not cool down for a while. Xiaofan called twice, but Zhang Tan did not follow. After little Xua led Xiaofan away, Zhang Tan went back to the courtyard. After taking 2 steps, he stopped, turned a corner, and followed not far behind the mother and son. It was still early now. Zhao Ma had not returned home yet. Zhang Tan could still stay outside for a while and listen to what little Xua and Xiaofan were talking about. However, it was Xiaofan who was talking all the way. Little Xua just smiled and listened. From time to time, he would respond to Xiaofan and let her perform. When they passed by the International Academic Hall, a group of people came out of the hall. They were surrounded by a few famous young returnees. Most of them were around 30 years old. They were about the same age as little Xua now. Even if they were older, they were only a few years older. It was just that they looked younger than little Xua and were much more glorious. The crowd surrounded them. There were also some experts and scholars accompanying them. Words such as young and promising, unlimited potential, pillars of the country, kept appearing. If little Xua had not participated in that project back then, he might be among these people now. He might even be higher than them. A group of figures with halos brushed past little Xua and Xiaofan. They did not pay much attention to the mother and son. They talked about their own ideals, ambitions, achievements, and glorious future amidst the compliments of a group of people. Little Xua, who had already walked past, looked back at the group of people. There was not much envy. Everyone had their own choices and their own paths. Although, in terms of contributions, she might have more achievements than those people combined, her achievements could not be exposed. At least not now. After taking a look, little Xua turned back and continued to lead Xiaofan home. When little Xua turned back to look, he did not pay attention to Xiaofan's movements. However, Zhang Tan, who was following behind, saw it. Xiaofan also glanced at those people. When little Xua turned back, Xiaofan also turned back. There were other parents who had picked up their children from kindergarten. A child was sitting behind his mother's scooter. He was showing off a poem he had learned today. Luo Binwang's Singing the Goose. He had memorized a few words wrongly. However, it was not easy for a child at this age to memorize a poem. Even if they could not understand the meaning of the poem, the parents were still very happy. Xiaofan glanced at the child. Then, she shook little Xua's hand and said to little Xua, "Mommy, mommy, let's memorize a poem too." "Okay, what poem does Xiaofan want to memorize?" Little Xua asked. "Let's compare poems." "Okay, compare poems. Xiaofan first." Xiaofan thought for a moment and raised her chin. Hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, boron. Little Xua was stunned. Then, he could not help but laugh. Carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, neon, sodium, magnesium, aluminum, silicon, phosphorus, sulfur, chloroargon, potassium, calcium. Zhang Tan, who was behind them and heard everything clearly, was speechless. This was a poem? This was clearly the periodic table of the elements. Chapter 364. Because of little Xua's return, Zhang Tan had originally planned to stop little Xua, bring him to the courtyard, and then give him a present for the 6th of July. But now, it seemed that there was no need. There was no gift that could make him happier than little Joie's return. The so-called consolation gift was also unnecessary. He couldn't give the present today, and he wasn't in a hurry to give it. He would wait for the opportunity. Unexpectedly, before Zhang Tan could choose the opportunity, little Joie came directly to his door. After visiting the Jiao Pa, Jiao Ma, little Joie talked to the Jiao Pa and Jiao Ma for a while. Of course, she didn't talk about the projects she had participated in. Those were the projects she had signed a confidentiality agreement with. She wouldn't and couldn't disclose them. Just like the excuse Lord Zhang gave her for going abroad to do research, she talked about the research she had participated in the past few years. She didn't say much. After all, it wasn't true, and little Joie couldn't lie too much. The Jiao Pa understood and didn't ask much. In addition to visiting the Jiao family, little Joie also picked up Zhang Tan to her house to celebrate the Children's Day with little Joie. On the Children's Day, the 4 members of the Jiao family didn't have a holiday at all. Zhang Tan could stay with little Joie for a day. After the Dragon Boat Festival, on Saturday, Zhang Tan went out with the Jiao family. Little Pomelo went to junior high school, Jiao Pa went to college, Jiao Ma went to affiliated to Renmin University of China, and Jiao Yuan went back to school on Sunday. So that morning, only Jiao Ma went to affiliated to Renmin University of China. Zhang Tan directly stayed in the courtyard after going downstairs, lying on a wooden chair and waiting. Next to the chair was a pillow that Father Jiao had brought down for him. It was placed in a bag and was used as a gift. Little Pomelo had tied the bag with a ribbon and tied it with a bow. According to little Joie, she would go out to buy groceries this morning and then come directly to pick up Zhang Tan. They were still living in the elevator room in the west courtyard. Zhang Tan couldn't go there alone. The building's security was troublesome, and he had to bring a present. In the morning, De Pang followed the old lady to buy groceries. Huang was still sleeping at home. The sheriff came out for a walk. He heard that the sheriff ate 3 dumplings at once during the Dragon Boat Festival. After his owner found out, he immediately sent to the pet center. Usually, the sheriff's owner was upset when he saw that 3 dumplings were gone. Not to mention that the sheriff's hut. The hut to Ren Min was in the courtyard. In this in's wise. No wonder the sheriff's owner's his. Wonder the sheriff's owner. S's owner's his. S's home day cat. S's ats. T's. S2. Was to worry. S to t tes s az's s to worry. T. Watching the sheriff climb over the wall outside the courtyard, Zhang Tan shook his head. Zhang Tan didn't wait long. Little Joie came over at 8 o'clock. She was carrying the groceries that she had just bought from the market. It wasn't a lot. After the groceries were transferred to one of her hands, she helped Zhang Tan carry the big black pillow with a cat's head. The Jiao Pa had called and told her about it. It always felt awkward to let a woman help carry things, but Zhang Tan couldn't help it. He was just a cat now. The west courtyard was very green now. It was not as bare as it was 2 years ago. The branches of the trees were spread out, and it looked much more comfortable. It was time to go to work, and there was no one around. Zhang Tan didn't take the stairs. He took the elevator with little Joie. After entering the house, Zhang Tan found that the house didn't seem to have changed much compared to a few years ago. There were only a lot of little Joie's things. The original decorative paintings on the wall had become little Joie's graffiti. Xiaofan, who had helped take care of little Joie for the past few years, had left. Her task had been completed. She was replaced by another middle-aged nanny, who was newly hired by Lord Zhang. Unlike the nanny hired when little Joie was pregnant, this nanny didn't have any dislike for Zhang Tan. After little Joie came in, the nanny quickly took the groceries and went to the kitchen. Little Joie was holding a pen and drawing on her small drawing board. When she saw Zhang Tan, she dropped the pen and ran over. "Black Bro's gift for you." Little Joie handed the pillow to little Joie. "Thank you, Black Bro." The little kid didn't stand on ceremony. He took the pillow and opened it. Then, he put the pillow in the room directly at the head of the bed with a smile. Zhang Tan noticed that there was a small bookshelf in little Joie's room. There were a few books on it that were taken from little Joie's bookshelf. Zhang Tan had seen those books on little Joie's bookshelf before. Looking carefully, there were a few books that had traces of being newly flipped through and children's-style bookmarks. On little Joie's desk, there was a Chinese dictionary and an English dictionary. Both of them seemed to have been flipped through many times. Zhang Tan jumped on the table and looked at the books on the bookshelf. There were a few children's science books. The books had also been flipped through, but now they were placed at the corner of the bookshelf. From the corner of the bookshelf, he looked at the books from the easy to difficult. They covered a wide range of subjects. Some of them had been flipped through many times, and some of them had been flipped through very little. The ones that had been flipped through very little might not be because little Joie didn't like to read them. It was just that he couldn't understand them now. However, Zhang Tan wasn't sure when that little kid would be able to understand them. Little Joie hadn't been around for the past few years, so it definitely wasn't little Joie who taught him. That little Juan should have taught him, but most of it was little Joie's own choice. While little Joie was hugging the pillow and watching cartoons, little Joie was holding a photo album and looking at it by the big window in the room. Zhang Tan wasn't interested in watching cartoons with little Joie, so he went over to see what little Joie was looking at. Jumping on the table at the side, Zhang Tan saw that there was a yellowed black and white old photo in the photo album. There was a circle of lace on the side. In the photo was a man who looked to be in his 30s. However, he was in his 30s at that time. He should be in his 50s now, right? He looked a bit like little Joie. Could he be little Joie's father? There was a drawing next to the photo. The paper was already yellowed. It was probably about the same age as the old photo. However, the person who drew the picture wasn't very good at drawing. Zhang Tan couldn't see what was drawn on the paper. He could only see that it was something similar to a circle. Little Joie's fingers rubbed the picture and the drawing on the paper through the protective film of the photo album. Then, she took out a golden badge from the drawer of the table beside her. The badge looked very similar to the drawing on the paper. Placing the golden badge next to the picture and the drawing on the paper, little Joie remembered some things that happened to her father when he was alive. She always remembered that when she was young, after her father drew this picture on the paper, he said to her in a very yearning tone, "There is a golden badge. It symbolizes supreme honor." Unfortunately, until he passed away, he was still unable to obtain that small golden badge. Touching the lines on the golden badge, little Joie said to Zhang Tan beside her, "Black charcoal. Do you know that a tree needs green leaves that are exposed to the sun to carry out photosynthesis? It needs bright flowers with a fragrance to attract insects to spread pollen. It needs fruits to continue the next generation. However, it also needs roots that are buried in the soil and cannot see the sun to absorb water. This badge is proof of my sacrifice. It is also the promise that this country has given me. With it, no matter if Kitten is smart or stupid, this golden badge will protect him." Zhang Tan knew that Joie Kitten's father on the household register was not his biological father. However, all the official documents were the same as the ones on the household register. All the files might not be true, but they were definitely authentic. They couldn't be more authentic. No one knew Joie Kitten's real background. She wouldn't be criticized and wouldn't have those strange looks. The values of the people of this era and the people of the past may be somewhat different. However, there are really many nameless heroes in this country. Many. There were many people who couldn't come back after going there. No one remembered them. Only some files that wouldn't be made public recorded their achievements. Perhaps one or two medals that symbolized their achievements accompanied them to the ground. The world needed people to be praised. However, most of these people would never be known by people. "Brother Hey!" Joie Kitten, who was watching TV, suddenly shouted. Hearing Joie Kitten's shout, Zhang Tan and little Joie both came back to their senses and looked over. They originally thought that Joie Kitten was calling them for something. However, Joie Kitten was only watching TV and didn't look over at Zhang Tan. Because of the angle, Zhang Tan couldn't see what was on TV. He didn't plan to pay attention to it. However, he didn't expect Joie Kitten to shout again. "Brother Hey! Mommy, Brother Hey is on TV!" Joie Kitten said to little Joie. Little Joie quickly wiped her tears and took a few deep breaths to adjust her mood. Then, she smiled and walked over. Zhang Tan was also curious. When did he go on TV? He went over to take a look. Joie Kitten was watching an entertainment program. There were several movie previews. Among them, there was the movie that Zhang Tan acted in last year. It was a very short clip. When Zhang Tan came over to watch, he only saw one scene and the ending, just this summer. Then, the trailer ended. Little Joie didn't notice. She only saw a few short scenes in a hurry. She saw the black cat in the movie, but she didn't connect the black cat in the movie with Zhang Tan. However, Zhua Kitten said it with certainty and little Zhua didn't refute. Zhang Tan observed little Zhua's expression and found that she didn't recognize him. He was secretly relieved. As long as it wasn't easy to recognize him, he was still free to go out for a walk. The movie wasn't so similar to reality. When Zhang Tan was shooting, he also chose a lot of angles that were beneficial to him. He let the camera take pictures of him to make him look more handsome. In addition to the post-production and some small special effects, no one should be able to directly match the cat in the movie with a cheap cat like him who was wandering around all day. However, how did Zhua Kitten recognize him? Looking at the child, she was quite sure. Speaking of black cats, there were also people in the Western District compound who raised black cats. When he came over in the morning, he saw one that looked quite similar to him. Little Zhua didn't intend to argue with Zhua Kitten about this topic. She looked at the screening time and said to Zhua Kitten, "Kitten, Mommy will take you to see this movie." Okay. At the same time, in Air Mao's house on the 3rd floor of the Eastern District compound, Air Mao, who was also watching this channel, was testing milk for his daughter. Every time he mixed milk, he would taste it himself to see if there was any strange smell and how the temperature was. Although the little girl could eat now, he didn't forget to drink milk. Chapter 365. Air Yuan saw that her father was wasting her milk and called out, "Ah! Ah!" She was a little anxious, but she couldn't express anything too complicated. Seeing that Air Mao was still staring at the TV, Air Yuan was unhappy. She patted the chair and used her voice to express her dissatisfaction. "Dad! Dad!" Hearing Air Yuan's call, Air Mao finally turned around and passed the milk to Air Yuan. "Daughter, that black coal actually acted in a movie." "Brother Black?" Air Yuan didn't understand what a movie was, but she knew that the black coal her father was talking about was Brother Black. Like Zhua Xiao Mao, she and Wei Xiaopang also called Zheng Tan Brother Black. Yes. It must be that guy. I knew it with one look. Other than the black coal, no other cat can act like that. That look in its eyes is so naughty, Air Mao said. Air Yuan held the cup and drank the milk. She thought about what her father meant by naughty, naughty, naughty. She thought for a long time but couldn't understand. Forget it, she didn't want to think about it. Drinking milk was more important. When she saw Brother Black, she would learn from her father and say, "Naughty, naughty, naughty." Air Mao didn't know what his daughter was thinking. He was still shocked by the movie trailer just now. He was busy taking care of his wife and child last year and didn't pay much attention to the black coal. He didn't expect that it had already acted in a movie. What a simple life. After thinking for a while, Air Mao still couldn't calm down the curiosity and surprise in its heart, but it couldn't just go upstairs and ask. At this time, the cat must be hanging around outside, and it might even be flirting with a female cat. If Zhang Tan knew what Air Mao was thinking, he would definitely rush over and beat him up. Seeing the phone on the table, Air Mao picked it up and saw that Air Yuan was drinking milk seriously. He told her to put the cup aside and play by herself for a while. If she needed anything, she could call him. He would go next door to make a call. The nanny was hanging the clothes. Air Mao went to the next room after informing her. He closed the door, flipped through the address book, and called Celestine. Celestine was at the company checking a few shipping orders and stamping them. He was a little tired from looking at the orders, so he went outside to get some fresh air. When he heard Air Mao's call, Celestine wondered why Air Mao was calling him at this time. As soon as the call connected, Celestine heard Air Mao's exclamation. "Senior, did you know? Black coal actually acted in a movie. It's not a pet commercial. It's a real movie. It's a big movie with a few small celebrities and it's on the big screen." Wei Ling choked on the word create. It took him a while to realize what he was talking about. "Speak properly," Celestine said. Air Mao, ever since his daughter, Air Yuan, could speak, he often talked to her. Although he influenced Air Yuan and let her learn a lot of words, Air Mao also learned some vague pronunciations and some habits when speaking to children. For example, he said eat as eat, and sleep as sleep. If he only said this to children, it would be fine. Many parents did this, but Air Mao also said this when everyone gathered together. He even mixed in some baby language, which gave everyone goosebumps. A group of grown-ups talking like this when they were together. Celestine wanted to punch him. However, black charcoal acted in a movie? He seemed to have heard similar news last year. He thought it was just like the advertisement at the pet center, so he didn't take it seriously. Now that he looked at it, it was true. What's the name? Celestine walked into the office and sat beside the computer. He searched for the movie, Black Cat, according to the name Mao mentioned. There was no cat's name on the cast list, only a few actors and the director's introduction. However, from the publicity, the director told the media that the black cat in the movie was borrowed from a friend. It was a trained black cat. Everyone called it Z, and its breed was unknown. Seeing this, Celestine laughed. Z? Breed unknown? It was obviously black charcoal. It even had a fake name. One stage name wasn't enough, so it came up with a second one. While he was looking, Mao called again. Did you see it? It's that black charcoal, right? Although it was a question, it showed a very certain meaning. Mao didn't doubt its eyesight at all. Yes. Celestine was on the phone while browsing the web. He had just finished watching the trailer posted on the internet. Anyway, he had nothing else to do. Since he happened to come across this matter, his interest was piqued and he read more. Hey, senior, it's not long before the release date. Why don't we go watch the movie together? Let's give Black Charcoal more box office? Mao said expectantly. He didn't go to the cinema often. In fact, there weren't many movies that attracted him. When he wanted to watch a movie, he would search online. Copyright and whatnot, it was just a term. Okay, let's go together then. Celestine was also looking forward to it. As one of the early people who knew the Black Cat, Celestine knew what kind of character the Black Cat was. All right, senior. Can children be brought into the cinema? It's been too long since I went to the cinema. I don't know the rules, Mao said. It seems that there are no restrictions. You want to bring Yuan to the cinema? Yuan is too young. He's only 1.5 years old. Moreover, the sound in the cinema is loud, the air is bad, and the screen is flickering. I'm afraid it will affect the child's hearing and eyes. Celestine recalled what his wife had said before and told Mao. I see. I'll ask when the time comes. Mao actually wanted to bring his daughter to the cinema. If the child's mother hadn't come back by then, would he go alone? Even if he went with his senior and the others, Mao still hoped that he could bring his daughter. Moreover, this was Black Charcoal's movie. How could Yuan's brother not go to the cinema to support him? However, the environment in the cinema was indeed not very good. Therefore, for the rest of the time, Mao was thinking of ways to reduce the impact of the cinema on the child. The Zhao family also knew that the movie was about to be released. They downloaded the trailer and watched it several times. Unfortunately, the trailer was too short. They could only hope that the release date would come soon. Before the release, all parties were busy promoting it. The actors weren't very famous, and there were also many newcomers. In terms of actors, other than the few idols who didn't bring much effect, there was nothing else. Director? He wasn't very famous. Compared to the few well-known directors, Kong Han was still a stranger. However, this time, there was a new element in it. It attracted a lot of people. The plot wasn't new, but they could watch the cat. Ever since the trailer was released, many people analyzed how the movie would do at the box office. Some people mocked the few scenes in the trailer, saying that the movie must have spent a lot of money to achieve such effects. It was common knowledge that the special effects of movies in the country were mostly unbearable. Why were the production costs of foreign blockbusters in the tens of millions or hundreds of millions of US dollars? But the domestic production costs were much lower. The computer special effects of the former started at 10,000 US dollars per second, while the special effects in the country were only a few hundred to a few thousand RMB per second. The difference in cost was obvious. It was true that you got what you paid for. There were many professionals, in movie-related forums analyzing the special effects. The production costs of such special effects should be at least tens of millions, right? Back then, Cat and Dog War, Pig Baby, and other animal movies cost tens of millions of US dollars. You want to use tens of millions of US dollars to make an animal movie in the country? Are you looking for trouble? Isn't it a waste of money? Although animal movies are very popular, the production costs are too high. Basically, no one in the country is willing to do it. I didn't expect Kong Han to film it this time. I have to say, this director is still too young. A production cost of tens of millions of US dollars, I must go and take a look. The cat in the movie looks quite real, especially the scene in the trailer where the cat stood up and walked. It looks so natural. How much did the optical computer special effects cost? This was someone who loved to watch big-budget movies. They felt that small-budget movies were too crude. They belonged to the category of people who only bought the expensive ones and not the right ones. Some people went for the production costs and the computer special effects, while others went for the cat element. I don't know any way one, nor have I heard of any sure Xiaotian. I just want to see the cat in the movie. Anyway, there aren't many movies to watch. It's rare to see a cat movie in the country. Let's support the domestic production. It won't cost much. Hey, that cat looks a lot like my dust ball. Behind the post was a large picture. The picture revealed the truth. Needless to say, the cat in the picture did look like Zhang Tan. However, there were many stray cats in the country that looked similar. Other than this netizen, there were also pictures of other netizens who had black cats. Before the movie was released, all kinds of computer special effects professionals were criticizing each other on the internet. They were waiting to see the overall effect after the movie was released. Then they would do a follow-up analysis and see who was right and who was wrong. Zhang Tan didn't believe that there was no one behind the scenes. However, it was a movie. Before it was released, it had to be promoted and promoted. What made Zhang Tan laugh the most was that some people used Yang Yi to ridicule him. I heard that Yixing Culture invested tens of millions of US dollars to film this movie. Does anyone know the details? Tens of millions of US dollars? Nonsense. Tens of millions of US dollars can be used to film so many movies in the country. Only you would believe those rumors. It's all hype. Definitely hype. Who knows? I saw that the computer special effects were done well. Maybe it's true. Who asked Yang Yi to be so rich and willing to spend so much money? Who is Yang Yi? You don't know Yang Yi? He's the big boss of Yixing Culture, Mr. Moneybags. I'm kneeling to Mr. Moneybags. 23 RD. But how come I heard that the movie's production cost was only a few million RMB? 24th. You're an idiot. Don't tell me you're on the same technology forum as me. 25th, 23rd, idiot. 26th, 23rd, idiot +1. Zhang Tan was amused by the posts. He didn't know much about the production cost, but he had heard from Kong Han that the movie's production cost wasn't high. It could be considered a small production. If Kong Han's words were true, then the people on the technology forum were all monkeys. No one would believe that Zhang Tan had acted in the movie himself, especially the movements, eyes, and micro-expressions. There were no computer special effects, nor were there any stunt robots. The stunt cats that Kong Han had found were not used at all. Instead, they were fattened up. However, no matter what, the movie Black Cat had been hyped up before it was released because of the production cost. Everyone, from Yang Yi and Kong Han to the actors and post-production team, were exposed. Yixing Culture was also known by many people. Chapter 366. The movie would be released in mid-July. Zhang Tan went with the Zhao family. Although pets couldn't enter the cinema, there was a connection in the world. In fact, it wasn't the Zhao family who contacted him. It was Feng Xiaokong who called. Feng Xiaokong had connections. Moreover, Zhang Tan's participation in the movie couldn't be hidden from the third master Feng. He already knew about it. 2 days before the movie was released, the third master Feng, who was in Beijing, directly called the Zhao Pa and settled it. Feng Xiaokong also said that he would bring Feng Mengmeng to watch the movie together to support her. Mao and Celestine had Yi Hao's help. The group went together. Mao and Celestine took the children with them. They also prepared eye masks, earmuffs, and masks. If they found that they were affected too much, they would carry them out. The Zhao family's 4 families and 1 cat moved separately. They weren't in the same cinema as Celestine's group. As for Xiaozhua's group, Xiaozhua and some of Lord Zheng's students were watching the movie in a cinema near the school. How did it feel to watch your own movie? Zhang Tan expressed that he was nervous and a little embarrassed. After all, this was a movie. With so many people watching it, it was very different from watching a documentary at home. The atmosphere was something that could easily affect one's mood. Although he had Feng Xiaokong's phone call, the necessary measures still needed to be taken. Zhang Tan went into his backpack again. When the movie started, he came out. Little Pomelo sat beside him. Zhao Yuan sat on the right. Zhao Pa and Zhao Ma sat on the left and right. There were people blocking the left and right, so he wasn't afraid of being seen. As for the people in front, they didn't look back. Even if they saw Zhang Tan, it didn't matter. The people in front of him were known by the school. Zhang Tan didn't know how many people were sitting in the theater and whether it was full or not. If not many people came to watch, he would definitely be disappointed. This movie was not only Zhang Tan's achievement, but also directly related to the size of his red packet. If the box office wasn't good, he probably wouldn't get many red packets from Yang Yi. However, from the sound of it, it seemed to be quite full. Black Cat was a comedy film with a funny style. Coupled with the elements of Zhang Tan, the movie theater was filled with laughter. Zhao Ma and the others also laughed, but they were more interested in Zhang Tan's performance. The audience behind him was discussing in low voices. Is that cat a real cat? They must have used a real cat, but the scenes just now were all computer effects. Haven't you heard? Tens of millions of US dollars were invested in this movie. If converted to RMB, it would be over 100 million. When Zhang Tan heard this, he said in his heart, "Bullsh*T, I personally went into battle." He even deliberately NG'd a few more times. However, even if there were a few NGs, Kong Han was still quite happy. The laughter around him calmed down Zhang Tan's nervous mood. At the same time, he thought to himself, this movie should do well. When the time comes, Yang Yi should give me a big red packet. It was cool, cute, good at acting, and knew how to cooperate. Where else could Yang Yi find such a good cat actor? While the Zhao family was bringing Zhang Tan to watch the movie, Mao and Celestine were also discussing on the other side. They were watching from different angles. Senior, Black Coal's acting is not bad now. It's better than 2 years ago when he was shooting commercials. After all, he has years of experience. Didn't he shoot documentaries before? He improved quite a lot back then. But Senior, how much attention do you think he'll attract with his actions? Mao and Celestine knew Zhang Tan well. Even if they were not proficient in special effects, they knew something about it. If this movie became popular and the real production cost was exposed, how much attention would the jumping black cat on the big screen attract? When that time comes, going out for a walk would probably be impossible. Celestine paused and said, "There's someone behind it." Mao thought about it and agreed. Although they did not know how many people were behind it, it could be seen from the online debate before the movie was released that there were very few people who had their eyes on Z. There must be someone who was deliberately guiding them. At the same time, they also restrained the insiders and limited the exposure of the media. Just like Mao and Celestine, when they were arguing about the production cost, only the insiders knew the real situation of the movie. However, no one dared to say it. Yang Yi had already warned them. However, even if they signed a confidentiality agreement, there were still people who could not resist the temptation of the outside world and leaked the news. There were indeed people who leaked the news. However, that person did not appear in the company the next day. The circle did not see that person again. It was said that he resigned and went back to his hometown. No matter what the truth was, everyone only knew that it would be fine as long as they kept their mouths shut and listened to the instructions. As for Little Joie and the rest, everyone was happy because of the jokes in the movie. When Ronald was drinking the paw washing water, Little Joie laughed out loud and kept laughing. "Mommy, he drank Brother Hayes' paw washing water." Haha. Little Joie's laughter was filled with schadenfreude. Little Joie did not refute and only laughed in response. Little Joie and the rest did not think that the paw washing water Ronald drank was real. Who would let a celebrity drink cat paw water? They must have changed it during the filming. Little Joie always believed that Ronald drank Zhang Tan's paw washing water and kept laughing. Little Joie's juniors thought that children were indeed children. They took everything seriously. In fact, everyone who knew the inside story would be happy for a long time when they saw this scene. Little Joie did not know the inside story, but she believed that this scene was real. After Black Cat was released, all kinds of comments and reviews appeared on the internet. There were good comments and bad comments. Some people said that the movie was good. It was worthy of being made with tens of millions of USD. The computer made the cat look like a real cat. It was not as if there were no animal special effects movies of this level in the country. They liked it. Of course, there were also people who said that the plot did not have much meaning. The newcomer's acting skills were too bad, such as a certain Luo. When it came to meaning, there were not many commercial blockbusters that had any. Some people despised fast food culture, but it was reasonable that it existed. After a hard day of work, looking for something relaxing to watch was also a kind of adjustment. We are not cultured people. We watch movies for fun. If it was a literary blockbuster, I might not even go. The children at home are happy watching it. As long as they are happy, everything else is secondary. Some netizens said. Xing culture also took the opportunity to continue promoting the movie. They made full use of the internet and attracted a lot of viewers. Zhang Tan did not pay much attention to those. There were people at home these days, so it was not convenient for him to go online. However, according to Zhao Yuan and the others, the movie's box office was good after a week of release. It directly beat another movie with a Best Actor and a Best Actress. Everyone saw that the movie was so popular during this period of time. They all said that tens of millions of USD were spent on this movie. However, Yang Yi did not say anything. He put on airs. However, everyone took Yang Yi and Kong Han's silence as tacit agreement. All kinds of speculations were reported, and they were all very sure. In fact, Yang Yi and Kong Han did not know how many times they had celebrated in private. Movie special effects professionals were still arguing about the movie's minute, which scene used special effects. The cat's mouth could not be that shape, the cat could not be that cooperative, and so on. There were endless comments. At the same time, more people who had never seen a movie before and were not interested in this kind of movie went to the cinema to watch it. They then came back to join in the debate. In the cat and dog friends circle, the movie was also popular. It was a hot topic recently. There was once a critic who joked that Black Cat was a movie about cats and that the actors in the movie were all reduced to the background. Apart from Ronald, the other important actors did not care about the background of the movie. Even Wei Wen and Shi Xiaotian did not care about the background. To them, the most important thing was the attitude of the big boss towards them. Everything else was secondary. Unfortunately, Yang Yi had been pretending to be mysterious during this period of time. No one knew what this tycoon was thinking. The box office sales had already exceeded 100 million yuan, and it was still in the screening period. Zhang Tan did not know how much the box office sales would be in the end. He only knew that he would receive a huge red packet and did not care about the rest. As a cat, he did not want to live under the spotlight all the time. That way he would lose his freedom. His cat life, which was already tough to begin with, would definitely become even tougher. Cats had no human rights. Fortunately, Yang Yi was there to take care of the aftermath. Third Master Feng seemed to have contributed as well. Until now, not many people had taken the direction of Z seriously. This summer, the Zhao family did not go on a long trip. As a cat who did not have any summer homework and spent most of his time on vacation, Zhang Tan felt that his cat life was actually very boring. What do cats do most of the time? Some people might say that they play with their tails, fight with themselves, or lift things up with their hands. None of those, they just sleep. Take Depang for example. Sometimes, Zhang Tan really wanted to tell this fat cat to go out and exercise. If you don't exercise, you'll get old. Everyone who saw Depang would think that it was a lazy cat. How could it not be lazy after being raised like this? Even rats would not be able to outrun it. Besides, it was already 6 years old. It would be impossible to catch it. However, Zhang Tan knew that was not the case. Yesterday, the sheriff was fighting with a cat in the west compound. Depang even went over to help. The sheriff was already on the losing end, but Depang went over and killed it instantly. Zhang Tan looked at the cat that screamed and ran away. In his heart, he lit a candle for it. For a long time in the future, that cat would probably run away from Depang whenever it saw him. Seeing Old Manly take Flowery out for a walk, Zhang Tan thought for a while and ran over to jump on Flowery's back. They took the dog cart for a walk. Usually, Old Manly would sneak over to the west compound to chat with a few old friends before coming back. Zhang Tan happened to go over to the west compound to take a look at Kitty Joie. Flowery had a good temper. It was often bullied by the sheriff and the others, but it was not angry. After Zhang Tan jumped on, it did not refuse. This weight was nothing to Flowery, who was 100 kilograms. However, very soon, Huang jumped on as well. Old Manly found it funny. His Flowery had a good temper. It was kind to children and other animals. It was so big, but it was always bullied by these few kittens. The sheriff came out with a smirk. He looked and jumped on as well. Old Man Lee wanted to say something, but when he looked up, he saw a certain fatty running over. Then he jumped on as well. Flowery looked at Old Man Lee with a wronged expression. Woo, Old Man Lee. Actually, the 4 cats combined were not that heavy. Little Flower had played with the children in the courtyard before. Zhang Tan and the other cats combined were about the same weight as the children. After Little Flower expressed his grievances, he continued to carry the 4 cats steadily. People who walked past saw this and could not help but say, "This dog and cat have such a good relationship." Chapter 367. Little Flower didn't feel wronged for long. Not long after they walked out of the courtyard, Huang jumped down from the dog's back and ran back to the courtyard. It didn't leave the courtyard much and didn't run around. It jumped on the dog's back because it saw Zhang Tan's behavior and followed suit. The sheriff didn't stay for long. He saw a little Pekingese and ran after it. Zhang Tan always thought that the sheriff was born in the wrong body. He should be a dog. As for De Pang, it jumped down at the intersection of the walkway to the courtyard and the main campus road. Then, it found a tree and squatted there, waiting for its old lady to come back. Therefore, when Old Man Lee walked slowly with Little Flower to the west courtyard, only Zhang Tan was left on the dog's back. There were also many pet dogs in the west courtyard. When they saw Little Flower, they started barking. They were all small dogs like Chihuahuas and Pekingese. Although they were barking fiercely now, they wouldn't dare to run up once the leash was released. Dogs bullied people because of their master's power. This was the philosophy of dogs. 1 or 2 cats squatted on the tree, letting the dogs bark around them. They lazily looked in the direction of Little Flower and Zhang Tan. Those who knew Zhang Tan wouldn't come over to provoke him. Those who didn't know him didn't dare to go over. After all, there was such a big dog next to them. They were too lazy to get down from the tree. Zhua Kitten was reading at home. When she heard the noise, she ran to the balcony with binoculars. Then she said to Xiao Zhua, "Mommy, Brother Hay and Little Flower are here. I'll go down and play." Because Old Man Lee often brought the dog here, some people in the west courtyard had a deep impression of Little Flower, whose size didn't match its name at all. However, everyone knew that this dog had a good personality. It didn't fight with other dogs and was good to children. Zhua Kitten even rode it. Therefore, sometimes when she saw Little Flower come over, Zhua Kitten would go over to play. Now that Zhang Tan was here, Zhua Kitten wanted to go down even more. Xiao Zhua was worried about him going down alone. After informing the nanny, she followed him downstairs. The children in the courtyard loved to play with Little Blossom because Little Blossom would not bite their balls. Someone in the courtyard even had a German Shepherd. That dog also loved to play with balls. However, the children in the courtyard did not play with it because many of the children in the west courtyard knew that if they threw their balls at the dog, their balls would not return. It was not that the black back wanted to monopolize the ball, but it often used its teeth to bite the ball. With one bite, the ball would go through. Once, Zhang Tan saw a middle school student who was playing basketball in the Western District courtyard throw the ball over. Then, the basketball was deflated by the black back teeth. Little Blossom stood under the shade of the tree. Some children came out to play with Little Blossom. Some children even climbed onto Little Blossom's body and treated him like a large plush toy. After Zhua Kitten came down, she didn't go with them. She went to sit beside Zhang Tan and talked about the movie they watched a few days ago. When the little brat talked about Ronald drinking Zhang Tan's paw washing water, she couldn't help but laugh. Xiao Zhua stood under a tree not far away. He smiled and looked over. He didn't interrupt Zhua Kitten. No matter what other people thought, Zhua Kitten was certain that the actor in the movie was Zhang Tan. However, other people only took it as a child's words and didn't take it seriously. After Zhua Kitten finished talking about Zhang Tan's movie, she talked about Little Blossom. "Brother Hay, what's in the wine barrel that Little Blossom is wearing around his neck? Mom said that it's wine, but I don't believe it." Zhua Kitten moved closer to Zhang Tan's ear and whispered, "I touched it once, but Little Blossom pushed it away before I could open it. But there's definitely no wine in it. According to the weight, it's not empty, and there's no liquid in it." Many people knew that in some pictures, Saint Bernard dogs always had an oval-shaped wooden barrel hanging around their necks. This was also their classic image. Some people said that the barrel was filled with wine. It was used to warm up the bodies of people who were in danger in the snow. It was said that Saint Bernard dogs used to rescue travelers in the snow. The wine in the barrel could warm up people trapped by avalanches and inspire their courage to survive. Of course, there were also people who said that the barrel was just a special decoration. Old Man Lee had made a small barrel for Little Blossom to wear on a whim. Usually, other than some people that Old Man Lee and Little Blossom were very close to, Little Blossom didn't like other people to touch the barrel. The barrel contained some of Old Man Lee's medicine. Old people always had this kind of problem. Sometimes, they would forget to bring medicine with them, or some emergency items. Old Man Lee would then use this small wine barrel. Such a big dog didn't feel tired carrying a small barrel filled with medicine. After wearing it for a few years, Little Blossom had already gotten used to it. The children who liked to play with Little Blossom were all told not to touch the barrel. If they touched it, Little Blossom would get angry. Although it wouldn't bite, it would push people away with its mouth. Because of this, when Old Man Lee bragged with others in the East Courtyard, he was very proud when he talked about his dog. Seeing that Xua Kitten was very curious about the barrel that Little Blossom wore, Zhang Tan wanted to open the barrel on Little Blossom's neck one day and show it to Xua Kitten. While Xua Kitten and Zhang Tan were chatting about Little Blossom had already been taken away by Old Man Lee. There were two other old men following them. They were heading towards the entrance of the courtyard. They were probably going to do something outside the school. Some children hadn't had enough fun yet. When they were pulled back by their parents, they even negotiated with their parents, saying that they wanted to raise Little Blossom. There was a place to walk in the school. If they could apply for a permit and the dog was obedient, the people in the neighborhood wouldn't say anything. Saint Bernard wasn't considered a dog breed that liked to bark. However, the problem was that Little Blossom was so big. It was obvious that it was a foodie. If they didn't have some financial ability, they really couldn't afford to raise this big guy. It also liked to drool and shed fur. It was torturous. Old Man Lee and the others didn't have much to do after retirement. However, some people who worked couldn't even take care of their children, let alone raise a dog. Moreover, it was a big guy. Raising a dog? No way. That was what everyone thought in their hearts. However, in front of their children, they would always come up with other excuses to dispel their thoughts. Zhang Tan had good hearing. He found it funny when he heard the excuses that the parents came up with. Just as he was secretly laughing, he heard a bang from the gate of the west courtyard that led outside the school. Then, many people there started to make a ruckus. It was as if an accident had happened. Some parents saw that the situation wasn't right. They hurriedly brought their children home and locked them up. Then, they went over to take a look. Little Xua also let Xua Kitten go upstairs. Originally, she wanted Zhang Tan to go home too. However, Zhang Tan wanted to go over there to see what was going on. He heard Little Blossom's cry. Seeing that Zhang Tan wouldn't budge, Little Xua could only bring Xua Kitten upstairs first. Mom, what happened over there? Xua Kitten held Little Xua's hand. Although she was curious, she still went back obediently. I don't know. Children shouldn't care about that. Xua Kitten turned her head and saw Zhang Tan running over there. After going upstairs and returning home, Xua Kitten stood on the balcony and looked over there. From upstairs, she could see some of the scenes outside the courtyard. Because of the angle, she couldn't see what was going on even with binoculars. She could only see that many people were gathering in one direction. Since she couldn't see, Xua Kitten looked at Little Xua. Seeing that Little Xua had gone into the kitchen, she took the phone and dialed a number. The phone didn't ring for long before someone picked it up. Hello, this is Zhu Yong's house. A very childish voice sounded from the other side. The words were unclear. It sounded as if he was eating something. At the same time, there were some crunching sounds. Little pig. I'm Kitten. Do you know what's going on outside the courtyard? Xua Kitten asked. I don't know. I'm watching TV. Little Zhu. Put down your popsicle. Then, pick up your binoculars and go straight to the balcony. Then, look in the direction of 2:00. Where is the direction of 2:00? My alarm clock is on the bed. I can't see it. Little Xua stood at the door of the room and looked helplessly at Xua Kitten, who was holding the phone and directing the person on the other end of the phone to see what was going on outside. On the other side, when Zhang Tan arrived outside the courtyard, he found that many people had already gathered around. Little Blossom was still screaming. However, there were too many people around. Zhang Tan couldn't see what was going on. But he could guess that it wasn't anything good. This gate was outside the school. The gate was on a wide road. The Western Courtyard's cars often came in and out of this gate, so there were more guards here. The inspection was stricter. Now, when Zheng Tan came over, there was no one in the guard room. The security guards in charge of this side didn't see him either. They all ran to the scene of the incident. Just when Zheng Tan wanted to climb higher to see the situation, 3 people in security uniforms pulled Little Blossom out. Little Blossom was still growling. He was very dissatisfied with the people who pulled him out. He struggled and looked at the crowd from time to time. There were bloodstains on Little Blossom. He didn't know if it was his or someone else's. The 3 security guards tied Little Blossom's dog leash to an iron hook on the wall next to the guardroom. Then, one of them immediately went to the crowd. The other 2 stood at the side to rest. They also dispersed the people who ran over to see what was going on. After listening to them, Zhang Tan found out that a person who wasn't very clear-headed just drove over and hit a motorcycle. The motorcycle and the people on it were all knocked out. The people and the motorcycle that were knocked out happened to be in the direction of Old Man Lee and the others. Little Blossom blocked the motorcycle, but he didn't block the people. The people on the motorcycle hit Old Man Lee and the others. The few old men were all lying down. "It shouldn't be life-threatening, right?" one of them said. "It should be fine." The owner of the car slowed down. The force of hitting the motorcycle wasn't very strong. The motorcycle owner shouldn't be in life-threatening danger. It's just that the injuries look a little scary. But those old men don't know. A person who jumped off a building can kill another person. A person who was knocked out can also injure another person. If it was a young person, it definitely wouldn't be dangerous. But after all, he's so old. Even a fall could be a big problem. If he was hit. Someone there said that Old Man Lee and the others were sent to the hospital. It was the school's special ambulance. Little Blossom was tied to the side. He squatted there and looked in the direction of the crowd. He made a whining sound from his nose. His usually well-groomed fur was messy. There were many bloodstains and stains. There was also blood dripping down from his fur to the ground. Dripping blood. Zheng Tan went over to take a closer look. Little Blossom was injured. There were a few cuts, but they shouldn't be deep. He just didn't know if there were other problems. After all, some injuries weren't easy to see. Now, the people there were busy saving people and clearing the way. The police cars had also arrived. No one cared about Little Blossom here. Zheng Tan couldn't help with saving people. The school's ambulance had already sent them to the affiliated hospital. As for Little Blossom, this place wasn't far from the pet center. Zheng Tan untied Little Blossom's leash from the metal hook. Little Blossom went 1 round in that direction. He didn't find Old Man Lee and was even chased away by a few policemen. Little Blossom turned around and ran towards Zheng Tan. Zheng Tan jumped on the dog's back and pulled the leash. He let Little Blossom go in the direction of the pet center. Chapter 368. The reason why Little Blossom could cooperate with Zheng Tan and run in the right direction was because Little Blossom was still a puppy. Saint Bernard was originally a big dog. Even when it was a puppy, it was still bigger than other small dogs. Naturally, it was bigger than Zheng Tan and the other cats. However, Little Flower's personality meant that it was destined to be bullied by the 4 cats in the courtyard. From then on, Zheng Tan began to train Little Blossom. However, other people thought that it was just a game between cats and dogs. No one thought that Zheng Tan was training a dog. Therefore now, Zheng Tan only needed to gently pull the collar on Little Blossom's neck, and Little Blossom would run in the direction of the pull. If he pulled the collar back, Little Blossom would stop. After a few years they had a tacit understanding. The passers-by saw this pair and thought it was quite interesting. However, the blood on Little Blossom's body made many people flinch. Little Blossom led Zheng Tan all the way to the pet center. He didn't let the passers-by look at him. Not long after Zheng Tan and Little Blossom left, the situation at the entrance of the Western Courtyard stabilized. The road was completely cleared. It didn't look like an accident had just happened. A few guards were talking about what had just happened. A young man in a school guard uniform ran over. "Hey, Xiao Wang, what are you doing here? Although there was an accident here, we didn't inform you to come over. You can't leave your post without permission," one of the guards said with a frown when he saw the young guard. "No, Brother Liu. I received a call from Brother Zhang. He said that he sent Professor Lee and the others to the affiliated hospital. Professor Lee woke up in the car and asked us to take care of Little Blossom. He said that Little Blossom was also injured. Brother Lou, who is Little Blossom? The young guard looked around as he spoke. He had heard that there was an accident here and saw the school hospital's ambulance leave. However, they couldn't leave their post without permission. Therefore, he suppressed his curiosity and didn't come over. He didn't expect to receive a call not long after. The person who sent Professor Lee and the others over thought that the matter here was not settled yet, so he did not call the security guards in the Western District compound. Instead, he called the young security guard who had been working a lot easier recently and asked him to take care of Xiaofan. However, he did not know who Xiaofan was, and the other party hung up without saying anything. After receiving a call from his colleague, the young guard immediately came over. However, he didn't know much about the people and things in the school. He had only heard of Professor Lee's name on the phone. He didn't know Professor Lee or Little Blossom. He thought Little Blossom was Professor Lee's relative or something. When he came over, he wondered why Little Blossom didn't go to the hospital with the ambulance. When he came over, he looked around and didn't see any injured people. Little Blossom? An older guard was stunned and looked around. Didn't I tie Xiaofan to the side at that time? Why is it gone? Bolt? The young guard was even more confused. Is that Professor Lee's big dog? Someone said they saw it just now, someone said. They asked around and realized that the dog had disappeared when they weren't paying attention. I've asked the guards in the East District. They said they haven't seen him return. A guard put down the phone and said, "Hurry up and look at the surveillance cameras." Even if it was a dog, they had to be responsible if they lost it. Moreover, this dog had saved people. Professor Lee was still talking about it while lying in the ambulance. It seemed that the dog was very important to Professor Lee. They gathered in the surveillance room and pulled up the footage captured by the cameras at the entrance. That one. I told you I tied it to the side. The older guard pointed at the footage and said. The footage showed the three of them pulling the dog out of the crowd and tying it to the side. Then, they stared intently at the dog on the screen. Then, from the footage captured by the camera, they saw a black cat, which was not much bigger than the dog, untie the dog's leash. The dog ran back and forth, and then the black cat jumped on the dog's back and rode the dog away. The guards. They were speechless. On the other side, Zhang Tan brought Little Flower to the pet center. Although Old Man Lee brought Little Flower there once or twice a month, Old Man Lee would bring Little Flower there either by bike or by car. Little Flower didn't remember the way. Now that it had Zhang Tan's guidance, it didn't make any mistakes. After seeing the pet center, Little Flower's anxiety towards the unfamiliar environment dissipated. Zhang Tan didn't let Xiaofan go directly to the pet center's main entrance. Instead, he let Xiaofan go through the side door and go straight to Xiaogua's studio. If they went through the main entrance, not everyone would know Xiaofan. If no one brought it, it would be inconvenient for it to do anything. If it needed treatment, it would have to wait. It was different at Xiaogua's studio. Even if no one brought it and there was no money to pay for the treatment, Xiaogua would treat Xiaohua's wounds first. Now that Old Man Lee wasn't there, the situation was unclear. Old Man Lee's family members were probably busy with Old Man Lee's affairs at the hospital. No one would notice Xiaohua for the time being. Leaving Xiaohua with Xiaogua was the best solution at the moment. The people in Xiaogua's studio didn't have much work to do today. They were all free to move around and think about how to shoot the next promotional video. As the number of views of the video on the website increased, more and more advertisers came to the studio. However, they still had to grasp the quality of the video. They couldn't fool people. They were watching TV and chatting in the room with the air conditioner. Suddenly, they heard a knock on the door. The sun is so bright at this time. Who's here? Who cares who it is? Hurry up and open the door. It might be a big client, an employee joked. The person closest to the door shook his head. He got up and walked over to open the door. When he opened the door, he saw a dog's head. A big dog covered in blood was looking at him. If he didn't see Zhang Tan on the back of the dog, the employee who opened the door would have been scared and closed the door first. They were in charge of filming, not veterinarians. They weren't familiar with the customers in the pet center. They only remembered a few people who were in contact with them often. They were unfamiliar with Little Flower. Moreover, Little Flower had a lot of bloodstains on its body. It was tired from running over. It opened its mouth and panted heavily. It looked a little scary. Boss! They couldn't handle this matter. They could only ask Xiaogua to come out. Xiaogua heard someone shouting in the lounge. He came out and looked. When he saw Zhang Tan and Little Flower, he was also shocked. He walked over and looked at the wine barrel that Little Flower was wearing. The wine barrel had Little Flower's name printed on it. This wine barrel was Little Flower's dog tag. All the information was printed on it. This made Xiaogua feel a little relieved. He was afraid that this black cat would kidnap the dog. Little Flower still remembered Xiaogua's smell, so it didn't reject it. Xiaogua sometimes went to the courtyard to look for Zhang Tan. Occasionally, he would also go to see Little Flower. The few pet owners in the courtyard all knew Xiaogua. Old Li and the others lived on the first floor. Little Flower's kennel was also on the first floor. It was more convenient to visit. Oh, it's Little Flower. There were very few pet owners around. He just wanted to confirm it by looking at the wine barrel. Little Flower ran over on its own this time. He didn't see Old Li, so Xiaogua was a little confused. Although he was confused, Little Flower's injuries still had to be treated quickly. He called the veterinarians in the pet center and brought Little Flower over. Meow! Sesame stood at the door and looked around. It smelled a strange smell. When it saw Zhang Tan, it trotted over. Sesame was now a size bigger than Zhang Tan. It was about the same size as peanut candy. If they were to really compare, Sesame was a little bigger than peanut candy. Zhang Tan wasn't in the mood to play with this guy. He wanted to go over and see how Little Flower was doing. Just now, he only wanted to hurry over to the pet center to treat Little Flower's injuries. He neglected Little Flower's physical condition. Previously, when he saw Little Flower being dragged away by the guards, he didn't see anything wrong with it. When it was hiding from the police, it also ran pretty fast, so he didn't think too much about it. Now that he was here, Zhang Tan was a little worried. If it already had internal injuries, would it be more serious if it ran over here? Although it hadn't been long since it came here from school, no one could be sure about its injuries. Little Flower was already more than 5 years old. It was said that the average lifespan of a large dog was shorter than that of a small dog. If it had some hidden injuries, would it shorten Little Flower's lifespan? In the past, Zhang Tan didn't have any feelings for cats and dogs. But in the past few years, he watched the cats and dogs in the courtyard grow up. They also played together on a daily basis. In the eyes of many people, they were childhood friends who grew up together. Although many cats were considered adults when they were 1 year old, from a human's point of view, whether it was 1 year old or 5 years old, they were all categorized as children. Just as he was about to follow Xiaogua to check on Little Flower's condition, he heard movement behind him. Zhang Tan turned around and realized that Sesame was following him. He raised his hand to push Sesame's head back into the house. It was a hot day, and it had a body full of eye-catching fur. It was better for Sesame to be obedient and bring it into the house. When Little Flower was receiving treatment, Xiaogua also called Old Man Li. The person who answered the phone was Old Man Li's wife. Because she was too worried about Old Man Li's condition, she didn't say much when Xiaogua called. She only said that she wanted Xiaogua to help take care of Little Flower. Little Flower's examination results came out very quickly. There are no serious fractures, and there are no problems with the internal organs. Those injuries are easy to heal. According to the file, it's between 5 and 6 years old. It's still a Saint Bernard in its prime. Professor Li usually takes good care of it. Little Blossom will have no problem living for another 5 or 6 years. A few days ago, someone brought a Saint Bernard over. It's already 13 years old, and it's still living well. It's good that there are no major problems. Don't be stingy with the medicine. Professor Li is still thinking about the dog even when he's lying in the hospital. This dog saved someone just now, Xiaogua said. Okay, I got it, the veterinarian replied. Xiaogua's words were to tell him that first, this dog was a good dog and was worth saving. Second, he didn't have to worry about the medical fees. The owner would pay for it eventually. Hearing the veterinarian talking to Xiaogua about Little Flower's condition, Zhang Tan was relieved. It was good that there weren't any major problems. Actually, now that he thought about what he heard at the entrance of the courtyard, Zhang Tan felt that with Little Flower's reaction speed, it could easily dodge the motorcycle that was sliding over. However, Little Flower probably didn't want Old Man Li behind it to get hurt, so it blocked the motorcycle. If the car hit the motorcycle with more force, Little Flower might not have survived. However, Old Man Li really cared about Little Flower. The old man himself hadn't settled down yet, and he was still thinking about the dog. Chapter 369. Xiaohua was picked up after staying in the pet center for 3 days. Because the injury was not serious, the medicine used was good. Plus, according to the vet, Xiaohua was still a young man with good recovery ability. After the wound was treated and the fur was cleaned, it looked almost the same as usual. Every few days, he would come back for a checkup to see if there was any infection or other unnoticed injuries. Old Man Li's life was not in danger. Because of his age, he had many old problems, so he was asked to stay in the hospital for observation for a few more days. Not only Old Man Li, but the other old men who were hit were also asked to stay in the hospital for observation. Anyway, Old Man Li had company, so he was not lonely. However, Old Man Li still missed Xiaohua every day. How good was it to have Xiaohua? It could be used as a towel to wipe the water, as a backrest, and to warm the feet in winter. It was much more useful than the woolen thermal slippers that his children bought. The dog was big and majestic. It looked good when he took it out. It was not afraid of being robbed at night and would protect its owner when it was in danger. It was such a good dog. He missed it after not seeing it for a day. They were an old couple and did not live together with their children and grandchildren. Usually, Xiaohua was the one who accompanied Old Man Li the most. Even his wife had to stay behind. The old lady had her own things to do, but the dog did not. The man and the dog did not separate from each other even when they were eating and sleeping. At night, the dog lay beside their bed. He always felt safe with such a big dog by his side, especially when he heard that there were thieves. Old Man Li touched Xiaohua's head and sighed. It was better to have a dog. Old Man Li lay on the bed and looked outside the window. He sighed. Unfortunately, the hospital did not allow dogs. Teacher Jiao's family had secretly brought a cat in before. Don't think that he did not know. But with Xiaohua's size, anyone who was not blind could see it. It was impossible to bring it in secretly. Every day, besides resting and chatting with his old friends, Old Man Li lay on the bed and groaned as if he had a toothache. Old Man Li's wife found it funny. He just missed the dog. I'll bring Xiaohua here tomorrow, Old Man Li's wife said. Old Man Li's grumbling toothache disappeared immediately. How? The hospital doesn't allow it. It's okay. I'll leave it with the hospital's guard. I know a guard. Just say hello. Okay. I'll go down and walk around. Even if I can't leave the hospital, I should be able to walk around, right? Also, you'll be safe with Little Blossom. Thieves won't dare to look for you. On this day, when Zhang Tan went out for a walk, he saw Old Man Li's wife carrying a lunchbox in one hand and holding Xiaohua's hand in the other as they walked towards the affiliated hospital. Sometimes, when she felt tired carrying the lunchbox, she would put it on the dog's back for a while. Was he going to visit Old Man Li? Other than Old Man Li's wife, Zhang Tan also met Xiao Zhua, who was riding a bicycle. Now that Xiao Zhua was back, she was not in a hurry to go to work. With Lord Zheng around, it was not a problem whether she wanted to stay in school or do other things. The most important thing for Xiao Zhua now was to recuperate. She did not receive the late-stage recuperation treatment in the project team. After she came back, she could not fall behind in the treatment. For little kitten Zhua, she also had to have a good rest. Zhang Tan went out for a walk in the morning and sometimes saw little Zhua. Little Zhua was receiving treatment at the affiliated hospital. He didn't have to go there every day. He just had to go there once every few days. Little Zhua was also obedient. There was a nanny at home, so she didn't have to worry. Because little Zhua was familiar with Xiaohua, Xiao Zhua also had some understanding of Old Man Li and the old lady. After greeting Zhang Tan, Xiao Zhua got off the bicycle and pushed it with the old lady. She also put the lunchbox in the old lady's hand on the basket of the bicycle to save the old lady the trouble of carrying it. After they walked into the hospital gate, Zhang Tan squatted behind the flower bed and looked around. It was not good to squat on the wall. He still remembered the situation when he came to the hospital and was scolded by people. The old lady talked to the guard for a while, then tied Xiaohua to a small open space behind the guardroom. She asked Xiaohua to stay there obediently, and then walked in with Xiao Zhua. The guard was told to help look after the dog. This was okay. Moreover, it was not easy to see people coming in and out behind the guardroom. It would not scare the patient. He also used a disposable paper cup to get some water for Xiaohua to drink. Xiaohua licked it casually and stopped drinking. It lay in the shade and panted with its tongue out. Its eyes stared at the direction the old lady left. The guard sat in the guardroom and looked at the dog that stayed quietly behind. When he heard the old lady say the name Xiaohua yesterday, he thought it was a butterfly dog or a toy dog like a Pomeranian. In the end, when he heard the old lady say it was a Saint Bernard, he knelt down. It was an adult dog that weighed almost 100 kilograms. No wonder the old lady was in a difficult position. Not long after, Old Manly came over. He walked quickly and did not even let the old lady help him. It looked like Old Manly really did not have any major problems. He would probably be able to go back after a few days of observation. Old Manly could not help but cry when he saw Xiaohua. The injured parts of Xiaohua's body were shaved and looked very obvious. After seeing Old Man Li, Xiaohua was also happy. It whimpered and wanted to rush over. Unfortunately, it was tied up, so when it was pulled by the rope, it looked like it was standing. It was big to begin with. When it stood up, it was taller than a person. It was obvious that it was a heavy fellow. If it were to fall on Old Man Li, it would be terrifying. Even if it were to put two paws on Old Man Li would have to lie down for a while. The guard wiped the sweat on his forehead a few times. The old lady also knew that if Xiaohua pounced on her, it would be terrible. She quickly stopped Xiaohua's excitement. "Xiaohua, sit down, sit down." The old lady quickly comforted Xiaohua. Hearing the order, Xiaohua sat down. However, it still whimpered at Old Man Li and wagged its tail vigorously. Old Man Li walked over quickly. He raised his hand and patted Xiaohua's head. "Xiaohua, my Xiaohua. You've suffered." The guard in the guardroom trembled. He felt a layer of goosebumps on his arms. When he looked over again, he saw Xiaohua licking Old Man Li's face until it was covered in saliva. Disgusting. This kind of big dog, especially with its mouth shape, was the most disgusting. After thinking about it, the guard decided not to look over there. Old Man Li cuddled with Xiaohua for a while. He thought of something and went to look for the guard. He remembered seeing a weight scale in the guardroom before. Because there was something wrong with the height measurement on the scale, no one fixed it. It was left in the corner of the guardroom. Sometimes, a few guards would weigh it to see if it had fattened up. He went over to take a look. As expected, the scale was still there. "Although it's not convenient to measure the height, the weight is quite accurate," said the guard. Old Manly stood on the scale and weighed it. Not bad. It was similar to the checkup in the hospital. He untied the rope and called Xiaohua over. It was so big that it was a little squeezy to stand on it. However, since it was not its first time standing on a scale like this, Xiaohua did not need Old Manly to say much. It stood properly. 95 kilograms. "Your dog is really..." The guard wanted to praise it. This dog was almost 10 kilograms heavier than a Saint Bernard owned by a friend of his. His friend often bragged about how big and strong his Saint Bernard was. Therefore, when he saw the scale, the young guard really wanted to praise it. In the end, before he could finish, Old Man Li's face was full of frustration. "It's lost so much weight." As he said that, Old Man Li even went over to pat the dog's head. He said with heartache, "Xiaohua, my poor Xiaohua. You've suffered." Zhang Tan and the guard. This time it was not just the guard. Even Zhang Tan trembled a few times. Before the guard could say the word, "Okay," he swallowed it back. Old Man Li could not stay outside all the time. There was a routine checkup later and he had to take medicine. Now that they had the dog, the old lady had to give Old Man Li a simple cleaning when they went back. He did not want to go into the ward with dog fur all over his body. If the other people in the ward were allergic to dog fur, it would not be good if there were any negative effects. Old Man Li reluctantly spoke to Xiaohua for a while before leaving. Before he left, he even held the young guard's hand and said seriously, "Young comrade, I'll leave my Xiaohua to you." The guard's smile was a little forced. Why did those words sound so awkward? After thinking for a while, he remembered that when his elder brother went to his girlfriend's house to discuss the wedding last week, his elder brother's father-in-law held his elder brother's hand and said seriously, "June, I'll leave my Liz hen to you." After Old Man Li left, Xiaohua lay behind the guard's room. This time, she looked much better. Xiaohua was a little anxious when she did not see Old Man Li previously. Now, she finally calmed down. For the next few days, whenever the old lady came to visit Old Man Li with a lunchbox, she would bring Xiaohua along. Today, the weather forecast said there would be a strong wind, but it was not obvious in the morning. There was no sun, and there was a little wind, but it was not considered a strong wind. Even so, it was enough to disperse the scorching heat. Some children even ran to the pond to play. Old Man Li's wife carried a thermal lunchbox as usual. She held Xiaohua's hand and walked towards the affiliated hospital. This little bit of wind was nothing to her. However, she still wore a mask. The wind was strong. Sometimes there would be dust in some places. It was better to wear a mask. Zhang Tan went with them. However, today, Zhang Tan did not go to the hospital. Instead, he went to the lakeside villa to see what Feng Baijin and Hu Zi were doing. Then, he could get a free meal there. Recently, there were more cats in the lakeside villa area. Every time Zhang Tan went there, he could see cats chasing each other and playing around. Usually, in the afternoon, 3 to 5 cats could be seen lying under the willow tree. Occasionally, when fish jumped out of the water, they would move their ears and open their eyes to look in that direction. However, even if it was a scene of collective laziness, the style could change in the next moment. Did you know what would happen if you threw a lively grasshopper into a group of cats? Zhang Tan had tried it before. That day, he happened to catch a grasshopper that jumped in front of him. It was probably caught by a cat. One of its legs was broken, and there were traces of cat claws on its body. However, this grasshopper was still quite happy. It jumped boldly and directly in front of Zhang Tan. It even planned to jump over Zhang Tan and jump into the bushes. After Zhang Tan caught it, he threw it to the place where the cats were lying under the willow tree. Then, the cats that were lying there lazily a moment ago suddenly became alert. Their pupils dilated. Looking at the grasshopper that was being fought over by the 5 cats, Zhang Tan silently lit a candle in his heart. When Zhang Tan came over, Feng Baijin was playing a game. It was probably a new game that he had created. Zhang Tan had never seen that game before. Hu Zi was lying on Feng Baijin's lap. When Feng Baijin moved, it snorted twice unhappily, indicating that it was disturbed and that Feng Baijin should not move. Chapter 370. After eating lunch at Feng Baijin's house, Zhang Tan planned to stay for a while and watch Hu Zi fight other cats in the neighborhood. However, after seeing the chat history between Feng Baijin and his classmate, Zhang Tan decided to leave quickly and go home. Feng Baijin had a classmate's house in the neighboring city. When the two of them were chatting, Zhang Tan saw that Feng Baijin said that there was a hailstorm and a strong wind. The wind outside Chuhua City seemed to be getting stronger too, but there was no rain or hailstorm. Zhang Tan had been in Chuhua City for a few years, but he had never seen hailstorms here. He had heard of hailstorms in the suburbs, but he had never seen hailstorms in the city. It usually only rained in the city. Looking at the sky, Zhang Tan decided to leave quickly. The weather was getting worse. After leaving the lakeside villa area, Zhang Tan ran back. A strong wind blew, and some bicycles that were parked on the side fell in a row. The trees on both sides of the road were bent by the wind, and the leaves rustled. Something was blown up by the wind and hit some of the parked electric cars and cars, making a sharp alarm sound. Zhang Tan didn't look at it for long. He just wanted to go back quickly so that he wouldn't be afraid of the wind or rain outside. When he passed by the affiliated hospital, Zhang Tan thought of Xiaohua, who was tied up there. He jumped on the wall and looked inside. Xiaohua was still lying there. Its eyes were squinted because of the wind, and its fur was messy. The guard was helping a patient in and didn't care about Xiaohua. At this moment, another gust of wind blew. Ka-ka! A tree near the guard room was blown down. It broke from the trunk, and the broken part fell towards the guard room. Xiaohua saw it and stood up to avoid it, but because it was tied up, it couldn't break free. Luckily, Zhang Tan saw that the tree fell slightly to the side, so it wouldn't crush Xiaohua. However, Little Blossom didn't know that. It only saw the tree falling towards it. After it failed to break free, it tried to break free a few more times. Coupled with the stimulation from the falling tree, it struggled even harder. It was as if it was trying its best to break free. This time, he was serious. He was not fooling around with Old Man Li like he usually did. Such a big dog really had a lot of strength when it got serious. Little Blossom's dog leash was tied to a steel pillar. The pillar was fixed in place, and Little Blossom could not pull it. The broken part was the hook between the dog leash and the collar. The hook was detached from the dog leash. Zhang Tan wanted to help Little Flower untie, but Little Flower had already broken the rope. After breaking free, Xiaohua's first reaction was to run in the direction where Old Man Li and the old lady had left. However, there were many people there, and they were also on guard against Xiaohua, the big dog. After being chased away, Xiaohua ran out of the hospital. Since it could not enter the hospital, it would go home. Seeing Zhang Tan at the entrance of the hospital, Xiaohua immediately sped up and ran towards Zhang Tan. Zhang Tan jumped onto Little Blossom's back. He hooked the collar around the dog's neck to stabilize it. Then, he moved the collar, indicating that Little Blossom could go back. With Zhang Tan around, Little Blossom did not run around like before. Moreover, it had been brought here by the old lady for the past few days. It remembered the way. While running, Zhang Tan realized that it had started to rain. This was not a good sign. If it was raining, Zhang Tan would not mind. However, Little Blossom was still injured and had not fully recovered. It would not be good if it got wet. Now it was windy. It seemed that the storm was about to start. There was a traffic jam at the T-junction in front. There were many cars and people. The road ahead was so blocked that Little Blossom could not squeeze through. An old lady even chased Little Blossom away with an umbrella when she saw it. It could not go on like this. Summer rain would not give you much time to react. It might rain down in the next moment. He thought about the distance between here and the courtyard. Although it was not far, with Little Blossom's running speed, it would still take 5 minutes. He did not know if it could last for 5 minutes in this weather. If it started to rain immediately, even if it stayed outside for 2 seconds, it would be drenched. "Hey, over there!" Someone shouted in his direction. Zhang Tan did not think that it was him at first. The voice shouted a few more times. Then, it added a "me" at the end of the sentence. This was how people called cats in this area. Zhang Tan looked over. Not far away, at the entrance of a small grocery store, a middle-aged man stood there and looked in Zhang Tan's direction. When he saw Zhang Tan looking over, he waved his hand. Zhang Tan hesitated for 2 seconds. In the end, he decided to go over and take shelter from the rain. The rain was about to get heavier. He could not delay any longer. He had to be decisive. He pulled on the collar and signaled Little Blossom to go over. Little Blossom was a little confused. It looked at the grocery store and then turned to look at Zhang Tan. It still followed Zhang Tan's instructions and walked over. However, it was still vigilant. When it was 2 meters away from the grocery store, it stopped and looked at the person standing beside the cashier. "Come in." The person waved his hand again. Little Blossom did not move. Zhang Tan jumped down from the dog's back and walked into the store first. It sniffed and looked in a direction. On a tall shelf, a very clean white cat was squatting on it. It looked down at Zhang Tan, who was walking in. Its pupils contracted, and its eyes looked a little sharp. Zhang Tan ran out and pushed Little Blossom into the store. Little Blossom followed Zhang Tan's push and slowly moved into the store. However, it was still vigilant. After it went in, it sniffed the surroundings. Then, it squatted near the door and did not go inside. As long as it was not drenched in the rain, Little Blossom's wound would not be a problem for the time being. If it got infected, even if it was not a serious injury, it would worsen. After Little Blossom entered the store, Zhang Tan looked at the person leaning against the cashier. The shop owner looked to be in his 40s. His skin was a little dark. It was not clear if it was natural or because of the sun. He had a very mean-looking face. With a cigarette in his mouth, he looked in the direction of Zhang Tan and Little Blossom. Generally speaking, aunties and old ladies would tell their little grandsons to stay away from such people when they saw such people. It couldn't be helped. A person's face could leave a first impression on others. People who looked amiable would also feel close to them at first glance. However, people who looked fierce or harsh like this person in front of them were treated differently. However, for animals, a person's face had nothing to do with an impression. If you were kind to them, many animals would feel close to you. When Zhang Tan saw the cat on the shelf, he felt that this person was not a bad person. He and Little Blossom were only here temporarily to avoid the rain. They did not want to interfere with this person's interests, so it should be fine. Moving his ears, Zhang Tan heard a sound and looked toward the back of the store. A young man came out with a box of umbrellas. "Boss, these are all the umbrellas." I tore up all the previous prices. They were all 15 yuan per umbrella. F***CK. The man was talking when he saw the big dog squatting at the door. He almost threw the box of umbrellas to the ground. Boss, where did the dog come from?" The young man looked very scared. He did not go closer. Holding the box of umbrellas, he looked at the person next to the cashier. "I called it in to avoid the rain. What are you afraid of?" "I'm afraid of dogs. I was bitten by a dog when I was young. Since then, I have felt that animals like dogs are really scary. I don't understand why so many people like dogs." "Okay, put the umbrellas there. You can take a nap in the back," the owner said with a cigarette in his mouth. His words were not very clear, and there was an obvious dialect. If Zhang Tan was not familiar with dialects, he would not have understood. The young man understood. He was already used to this way of speaking. He quickly put down the box of umbrellas and slipped away. He did not forget to close the door to the back room, as if he was afraid that the big dog in front of the door would enter. The shop owner took out a pen and wrote something on a piece of white paper. Then, he took the paper and moved the box of umbrellas to the entrance of the shop. The paper was hung on a shelf above. It was written in black and white, and it was written in bold font, "Umbrellas and raincoats for sale. Special price of 20 yuan per umbrella." If Zhang Tan was not hallucinating, the young man said that the umbrellas were sold for 15 yuan when he moved the box over. 20 yuan was a special price. It was indeed a special price. He was a profiteer. After Zhang Tan and Little Flower entered the house, the rain turned into a storm in less than 2 minutes. The raindrops splashed on the ground, and Little Flower could not help but take a step back. The wind outside became stronger. Basically, as soon as they went out, they would get wet. The wind was too strong, and the rain would still drift into the house. Therefore, the owner closed most of the door, leaving only the part where the umbrellas were placed. The box was covered with a layer of cloth. It was waterproof, so there was no need to worry about the rain falling into the box. Needless to say, there were many people who came to buy umbrellas and raincoats. Many of them hurriedly paid the money and left with the umbrella. Of course, there were also people who bargained, but in the end, they were always rejected. They would not give a cent when buying other small things. In short, they did not bargain. The owner walked to the cashier and started to fiddle with an electric fan. The kind of desktop electric fans used by students. Usually, the students in the school would take the fans and fix them when they stopped working. Some would sell them at a low price. The fan in the shop owner's hand was probably bought from a student at a low price. After fixing it, he could sell it for some money. Clang! Zhang Tan looked in the direction of the sound. 2 young men with dyed hair and wearing short-sleeved t-shirts with skulls on them walked in. The sound came from them kicking the metal frame at the door. Both of them were soaked. They wiped their flip-flops on the dry paper box beside them and were cursing. After seeing Xiao Hua, they paused and restrained themselves. Most people were still afraid of this kind of big dog. The 2 of them took 2 umbrellas and some other things from the shop and came to the cashier. "The total is 72. 30 yuan, thank you," the shop owner said. "It's so expensive. Make it cheaper," the young man said as he put the things into a bag. "No bargaining. 72. 30 yuan, thank you," the shop owner said again. The shop owner said again. He didn't say anything about the young man putting the things into the bag without paying. "Hey, you old thing, wasting time. I told you to make it cheaper, so make it cheaper. You don't understand nice words, right?" As he spoke, the young man took out a 50 yuan bill and slammed it on the counter, intending to take the things and leave. However, the shop owner reacted faster. Before the young man could take the bag, he was twisted and pressed against the counter. Ouch, ouch, ouch. The young man's face was distorted. He did not know why, but when he moved a little, it hurt so much. It was as if his face was going to be broken. "What are you doing?" the other young man said angrily. He looked to the side, intending to take the mop. It was easier to talk with a stick in hand. Woof! Little Blossom realized something and called out. She even growled at the person who was trying to get the mop. The young man's hand was about to touch the mop, but he was scared by the dog's barking. Chapter 371. In the affiliated hospital, The old lady panicked when she received the call from the guard. Just now, Old Man Li had fallen asleep after taking his medicine and injections. The old lady leaned against the chair beside him and took a nap as well. The other people in the ward who were awake were discussing the changes in the weather outside. They deliberately lowered their voices. However, when they saw a tree being blown down by the wind, someone could not help but let out a louder cry of surprise. The old lady woke up because of their exclamations. So did Old Li. After seeing the weather outside the window, the two elders couldn't stay calm, especially Old Li. The first thing that came to his mind was that Xiaohua was still tied up in the guardroom. What would happen to Xiaohua in such a windy and rainy day? Before the old lady could make a call, the guard called. The old lady had left her phone number with the guard. Therefore, when the guard saw Xiaohua run away, he immediately called the old lady to explain the situation. The two elders were worried that Xiaohua had run away. However, when they remembered that Xiaohua ran away with Professor Xiao Jiao's cat, they calmed down a little. A few days ago, when Little Blossom was injured, it was Professor Jiao's cat that brought Little Blossom to the pet center for treatment. Little Gua had told the two elders about this, and Old Man Li had even called Professor Jiao to thank him. Old Li even told the old lady in private, Professor Xiao Jiao is a good person and a good cat. However, the weather outside wasn't good. Old Li couldn't rest in peace. He asked the old lady to pass him the phone. He directly called the Jiao Pa. The Jiao Pa, who was arranging teaching materials in the office, saw the caller ID and immediately picked up the call. Old Li was a retired professor from the Institute of Biological Sciences. Although Old Li studied plants and didn't have much to do with the Jiao Pa's research, the teachers in the institute still respected Old Li. Therefore, the Jiao Pa didn't think much and picked up the call. Hello, Professor Xiao Jiao. Did your cat go back? Old Li briefly told the Jiao Pa about what happened at the hospital. The Jiao Pa thought about it and said, I'm in the office now. I'll call and ask. Sorry to trouble you, Professor Xiao Jiao. If you have any news, please call me back. After hanging up, the Jiao Pa called home. Generally speaking, when Zhang Tan was at home, he would press the answer button when he saw the familiar number on the landline. However, after ringing for a long time, the other side did not pick up. Jiao Pa looked at the weather outside and frowned. Then, he called Jiao Wei's parents and Feng Baijin. He asked them all, but Feng Baijin said that Zhang Tan had already left. While Jiao Pa and Old Man Li were looking for Zhang Tan and Little Flower, the two of them were still hiding from the rain in the grocery store. At this moment, the atmosphere in the grocery store was a little strange. The two arrogant young men were now listless. One of them was pinned to the counter by the wrist and didn't dare to move. Only his face was distorted from the pain. At first, he was still talking tough, but now he didn't even dare to fart. He could only hope that this mean-looking shop owner would quickly let them go. Just like what the shop owner said, if they wanted to let them go, they could either pay for it or get lost. On the counter, there was still the 50 yuan that the man had taken out, but the shop owner didn't look at it again after a glance. He only paid attention to the two young men who were dressed differently. The man standing at the side swallowed his saliva. He felt that the wind outside was a little cold. The wind was wet, which made him feel even colder. I'm warning you, don't go too far. The young man standing at the side raised his hand and pointed at the shop owner. However, it was obvious that his fingers were trembling. Little Flower sneezed from the rain that had splashed onto his nose. The man was so scared that he trembled again. He couldn't outsell the Samoyed when he was smiling, and he couldn't outsell Brother Ba when he pretended to be pitiful. There weren't many facial expressions on Flowery's face. For people who didn't know this type of dog, the most intimidating thing was its size. The two young men wondered if the big dog behind them was showing its impatience. When they thought about it, they became even more scared. The shop owner didn't say anything. He just looked at them with an expressionless face. Then the young man standing at the side gritted his teeth, took out 22 yuan from his pocket, and put it on the counter. Is this okay? Let my brother go. The shop owner didn't say anything, nor did he let go. Instead, he twisted the man's wrist again, which made him scream in pain. $72.30. Is your elementary school math taught by a physical education teacher? The young man standing at the side froze. He didn't expect the shop owner to be so serious about 30 cents. I don't have 30 cents left. If you don't believe me, I'll show you. As he spoke, the man rummaged through his trouser pockets and took out everything in them. There was a 10-cent coin in his left trouser pocket and 2 old 10-cent coins in his right trouser pocket. The man standing at the side choked. He didn't expect there to be 30 cents left. He put all 3 coins on the counter and looked at the shop owner. "Is this okay?" The shop owner shook his head and looked at the man. "Last chance." "Ouch. F***ck. Hurry up and give me the money." The man whose wrist was being held shouted at his partner. The person standing next to him put another 50 yuan note on the counter with a depressed expression, and then hurriedly left with his companions. The man wanted to take the 50 on the counter, but he found that a finger was pressing down on the corner of the 50. He looked at the 50 on the counter unwillingly and snorted. He was pulled away by his partner, who took the things and walked towards the door. When he left, he wanted to find something to fight back. Even if he couldn't hit the man, he could at least hit the shop. He didn't expect to kick a shelf when he turned around. His toes hurt from the impact, and he wanted to curse. Just as he was about to curse to vent his anger and grievance, he heard 2 barks from behind. "Woof!" Xiaofan stood up and looked at the 2 men. He felt that something was wrong from them, so he only barked twice to test them. At the same time, he reminded them not to come over. Xiaofan looked very big when he was lying down, and when he stood up, he looked even bigger. His every move was very eye-catching. However, Zhang Tan didn't stop Xiaofan. He felt that the 2 young men didn't have the guts to come over and fight with Xiaofan. Moreover, the shop owner wasn't a simple person. He could subdue people with one move, so he definitely wasn't weak in a real fight. He was much more powerful than the 2 young men. The 2 young men choked because of Xiaohua's barks. They looked at each other and didn't want to curse anymore. They quickly left. "What's going on?" The man who had run to the back room to take a nap was woken up by the barks. He gathered his courage and opened the door to take a look. He raised his eyebrows when he saw the 2 men at the door. Are they looking for trouble? When the 2 men at the door saw that the shop owner had helpers, they didn't want to stay there and quickly left. They didn't even open the umbrella they just bought and ran into the rain. The man who came from the back of the shop walked around Xiaofan. He stuck to the shelf on the other side and quickly walked to the cashier. "What's going on, boss? Are those 2 looking for trouble?" "It's nothing. They're just kids. There's no need to worry." The shop owner put the money into the money box. Only the 50 yuan bill that he took out from the counter was still in its original position. Oh, they dared to use fake money. They must be doing it on purpose. "Boss, why didn't you beat them up before letting them go? Why are you arguing with kids?" The shop owner moved the fake 50 yuan bill to the side of the counter and pressed it with something. Then, he picked up the screwdriver and continued to repair the fan with a cigarette in his mouth. The employee had just woken up and didn't plan to go back to the back room. He dragged a chair over and sat down to watch the shop owner repair the fan. He felt that the shop owner should have taught those 2 a lesson. Those who ate, drank and played outside all day, bullied the weak and feared the strong, should be taught a lesson. "Boss, they're about the same age as me. If they're not 20, they're at least 18. They're still kids." After a pause, the employee said, "Boss, what's the difference between kids and adults? Isn't it age?" The shop owner's gaze didn't move from the fan. He bit the cigarette. "Difference? Kids care about who can take them to eat, drink, and play. Adults care about who can lead them to success." The employee pursed his lips. He didn't agree or refute. He looked at the box at the door and said, "Boss, didn't anyone say anything about your behavior of raising the price in the rain?" "What's there to say? The bus fare increases during the holidays. What's wrong with raising the umbrella fare when it's raining? I've learned from you what it means to take advantage of a burning house." "No." The shop owner shook the screwdriver in his hand. "I'm just letting you know more vividly what it means to be a businessman without evil intentions." Perhaps for many people, all businessmen without evil intentions was a derogatory term. However, for many businessmen, such as the shop owner himself, that wasn't necessarily the case. Zhang Tan squatted next to Xiaohua and listened to the conversation between the shop owner and the employee. He felt that the shop owner was quite interesting. "Hey boss, aren't you afraid that the cat and dog will stay here?" the employee asked. He wasn't afraid that Zhang Tan and Xiaohua would hear him at all. In his opinion, Even cats and dogs that had been with people for a few years wouldn't be able to understand complicated words. The shop owner didn't say anything. Zhang Tan also pretended that he didn't hear anything. On the shelf, the white cat changed its position. It was still staring at Zhang Tan and Xiao Hua from above. Even when the shop owner called it over, it didn't move. After staying in the grocery store for about an hour, the rain gradually became lighter. After another 10 minutes, it finally stopped. However, there were still a few drops of rain falling from the sky. The sky was much brighter now, but the wind was still blowing. Looking at the sky in the distance, there was probably still a storm brewing. Taking advantage of this time, he quickly went back. As soon as Zhang Tan left the grocery store, Xiao Hua stood up and followed him out. After walking for a while, Zhang Tan turned back to look at the grocery store. Because the rain had stopped, the door was opened again. The situation at the cashier counter could be seen clearly from outside. The shop owner was testing the electric fan that he had just fixed. The white cat jumped down from the shelf and onto the cashier counter. The white cat looked at the shop owner with its sharp eyes. Then, it quickly used its paw to remove the cigarette in the shop owner's mouth. The shop owner hadn't stopped smoking for more than an hour. He liked to work with a cigarette in his mouth. If he didn't have a cigarette in his mouth, he would feel uncomfortable and weak. After his cigarette was removed, the shop owner wasn't angry. Instead, he choked on his laughter. Cough, cough. Hey, this cigarette can't be wasted. It's more than 10 yuan per pack. As he spoke, the shop owner quickly picked up the cigarette that had fallen on the counter and put it back in his mouth. Then, it used its paw to remove the cigarette again. Hey, you little heartless brat. The shop owner picked up the cigarette and took a puff. Then, he blew a smoke ring at the white cat. The white cat that was squatting there leaned back. It probably realized that it couldn't avoid the smoke ring while squatting, but it didn't want to move. Therefore, it raised its two paws and waved the